Call the meeting, the order of the Wareham Planning Board for November 22nd. Wareham Planning Board for November 22nd is called to order. Have a roll call of all members in attendance, including Mr. Rowley, Mr. Buckland, and Mr. Shaheen. I'd like to welcome Jane Gleason to her first meeting as an associate member of the Wareham Planning Board. Very glad that she's here. I will read our mission statement. The Wareham Planning Board is a land use board whose primary purpose is to provide for and guide the orderly growth and development of the town of Wareham. The Planning Board will oversee and administer land use projects that come before us with three primary objectives: to ensure the public safety, interest, and welfare of the citizens of Wareham, proper application of state and local laws, regulation, and procedures regarding land use, and safeguard the land use rights of Wareham property owners. Those state and local laws, regulations, procedures, which have been established by the voters of Wareham and their elected representatives, include the Wareham Bylaws, the Wareham zoning bylaws, the Wareham rules and regulations governing subdivision of land, as well as Massachusetts General Law 40A, known as the Zoning Act, and Massachusetts General Laws Chapter 41, which include the subdivision control law. Other functions of the Planning Board include the consideration and preparing of amendments of the town zoning bylaws for submission to the town meeting warrant, and development maintenance of the Wareham Master Plan. We are anxious to work with the citizens of Wareham as our town evolves, and we encourage all citizens to familiarize themselves with our state and local laws, regulations, and procedures to help us provide for and guide the orderly growth and development of the town of Wareham. So thank you for putting up with that. I have a lot of preliminary business I need to talk to tonight. One, just a reminder to the board that we need to make sure that we're certified on the Massachusetts ethics test and certification. There's a web page you can go to do the test. I think you have to do it every 2 years. I've sent out the link to that. If you need any further help, I'm also trying to get a status of where everybody is. Done. Me too. Done. So good. So that's ethics, which we all need to pay attention to, obviously. We've been talking at our workshops, and we had a really good workshop this month about permit discrepancies and how to escalate those to the building commissioner. And we've talked a lot about some of the processes that we use here at the planning board and how we're not real clear on exactly how they're supposed to go. So to that end, I've put together 3 process docs on public hearings, on site inspection, and on permit discrepancy escalation. And you all should have earlier copies of those. I'll be sending out updated copies based on the feedback I've gotten. And the reason I do that is we'll be having to implement these. We need to have a public hearing on them, and I'm working with Aaron to get them posted in draft form on the Wareham Planning Board webpage, so everyone can see them. And also to that end is Article 15 of the Wareham zoning bylaws, site plan review. You've all seen first cut, and now there's a second cut based on feedback I've gotten. And I would like to, when it comes time, we need to do a public hearing on that as well. Maybe we can do them all at once, or at least do 2 of them, and kind of lump the process docs in one, and the article for site plan review in another one. For those that are wondering, the site plan review is, with one exception, there's no policy change to it. It's just a cleanup and getting it in order, getting rid of some areas that are very confusing. So, and the one policy change is to eliminate 2 contradictory paragraphs. So we're not trying to change anything. We're trying to make sure that we all understand exactly how site plan review is supposed to happen, and then we can go change it. finally, we have an interesting situation. There are 3 preliminary subdivision plans that were submitted around the April-June timeframe, April-May timeframe. In the April timeframe that the applicant would like to submit to us tonight, just for receipt, if you will. Pardon me? No discussion. We can discuss it, yeah. Would like to submit to this board just to get the clock started. We could have discussion if you want, but I think the only discussion we need to have is it's not on the agenda. You know, that's the issue that we have. And the applicant is in a time crunch. And by us accepting them tonight, all we're really doing is starting a 65-day clock to hold the public hearing.
So it would be no different than them bringing it to the clerk?
I'm sorry?
It would be no different than them bringing it to the clerk?
The timing, Mr. Buckland, can you help me on the timing issue around that?
It would be no different than taking it to the clerk. Only the regulations under the subdivision rules and regulations say it has to be by certified mail to the town clerk.
And they haven't done that,
They're doing that now probably as well.
but they haven't done it.
I don't know, you'd have
The
to-
clerk doesn't have the certified mail at this point.
I don't know if it's been done or not.
So is it just a courtesy on our part to allow them to present as opposed to a necessity?
Not to present. It is a courtesy I consider it a courtesy on our part, but not to present, just to stamp them as received. I do not think that the applicant is ready to prepare or to present a definitive subdivision plan today.
We wouldn't have them present anyway because it's not on the agenda as an item.
So it's just instead of going to the town clerk to stamp it as received, they're coming to the planning board to stamp it as received. I think that's a fair way of saying it.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, a question on the timeline.
Sure.
I understand that would start the clock. Will the notifications to all the other boards that are required happen so that we get the comments from them? I have to go back and review the bylaw, but that's one of the areas in which we're changing, or not changing, but seeking to understand. And I don't think, and I can't remember if it was site plan or subdivision, that we can start public hearing until the boards have had 20 days for comment.
That's not on subdivision. That's on site plan review.
I said I couldn't remember which one it was. So, okay, it's not a subdivision.
Right.
Okay.
So I've
We
had,
still need to notify those boards though, right?
You have to notify the Board of Health and allow them to make comment,
so we can, but I guess
Not
the
the
real.
Conservation Commission?
not the Conservation Commission.
I think the real question is that, can we initiate that process Monday? If we accept these tonight?
Yes, we could.
Yeah, I think that would be critical. The discussion I had in the planning office prior to this meeting around this topic was, how do we not shortchange ourselves?
Well,
And I think you bring up a good point.
yeah, I mean, if we accept them tonight and we can't begin the process of notifying the other boards until Monday, can the time clock start Monday? Does it have to start tonight?
I think it has to start tonight, doesn't it? But
It would be started tonight.
So we're stealing 6 days, 7 days from ourselves.
3, I think oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, let me back up. For some reason, I'm on a Friday right now.
No, it's Monday, Richard.
Yes.
It's Monday.
We can start this tomorrow.
That's right. We can
Right,
send
we
it out
can
tomorrow.
start-
All right, that's a horse of a different color. All right.
I wake up every morning and I go, what day is it? You know?
It's nice to be
I know.
retired.
So, any other comments or questions? I don't think we're shortchanging ourselves. The only implication I see is we're starting a 65-day clock on having a public hearing, which we've never come close to reaching anyway. And I don't see it as an impact. And I think we should, I know I will ask for a vote eventually on this, and I will suggest we do it.
I have no problem with it as long as we can start the process of notification tomorrow.
Any other comments or questions? So I'm going to ask for a motion to,
Well, why don't you at applicant present the application.
Well, I thought you had them in hand.
I don't have them in hand.
Oh.
The applicant has them.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's a good. Mr. Madden, is it you?
Behind the mask?
I'm one of the people, yes. Would you like me to?
Sure. It's my understanding we have applications for, which ones do you have?
I have 140 Cahoon Road and 150 Cahoon Road. They're both definitive plan subdivisions following up the preliminary plan that was submitted to the planning board on April 30th. Those were submitted on April 30th. There was no determination or decision made by the planning board on those, but they were submitted. There was a 45-day review period associated with the preliminary plan. I think it's 90 days for the definitive when a preliminary plan is filed. So planning board would have 90 days, I think, to act on it. According to the subdivision rules and regulations, one of the things, at least this is my interpretation of it, is that in submitting the plans, we are required to submit them to the planning board at a regularly scheduled hearing. It's in the subdivision control rules and regulations, or by certified mail, registered mail, care of the town clerk. So we've been advised by council to come to the meeting tonight to deliver these by hand, so satisfying the subdivision control element, and also to file them by certified mail
With town clerk?
to the town clerk, the planning board care of the town clerk. I think, in my view, I believe this satisfies the filing requirement for the definitive plan. However, I will defer to council's expectation in what they expect us to do on the behalf of our collective client.
Sure.
So they're really just 3 lot definitive subdivision plans follow up to the preliminaries that we submitted back in April.
3.
3 lots each one, 2. I have 2 with me today.
Right.
And I think there'll be another one going by certified mail. I believe there's another representative for a client that's submitting some as well
Tonight?
tonight.
Yes. Okay.
Stacy.
Okay.
For Bills and Thomas, if
Okay.
I might. So anyway, these are the required things. I just wondering if the filing fee checks, the checks for the butter notifications, what have you. Could I trouble you to get my transmittal receipted, my cover letter of?
I would be happy to after we vote.
Sure.
All right.
But essentially, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
The relatively small dead end 3 lots, and
Sure.
just to really satisfy the requirements associated with a zoning freeze.
Right.
Subdivision submission.
Okay. Can we hear for the third from that applicant as well? We'll do it all at once.
I have more materials to bring forward than Bill. Stacy Minahan with Beals and Thomas. I'm submitting. Stacy Minahan with Beals and Thomas.
Hi.
I'm submitting 3 definitive subdivision plan applications for the same reasons Bill enumerated for his projects, following up on a preliminary subdivision 3 preliminary subdivision applications earlier in the spring. My 3 were submitted, I think, 1 in May and 2 in June, in early June. And I have the plans and the filing fees and the materials as well that I'll bring forward.
Any questions or comments from anyone on the board?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Buckland, do we have project numbers yet for these projects?
No, we do not.
I think
We have ones for the preliminary subdivisions.
For the preliminaries, but for these new ones?
No, we could use the same numbers, I assume, then in that case.
We haven't done that in the past, but whatever you decide. So there'll be 6 projects. Is that what we're talking about? 6 projects?
We're talking about 5, 3 from Stacy and 2 from
Oh,
Bill.
2 from Bill, 3 from Seth. Thank you.
anything else?
No, I just want to make sure I know what project numbers I'm tracking.
Okay. So this is, Jane, you get to vote on special permits and this is not one, so you don't get to vote on this. I'll take a motion then to accept the 2 from Mr. Madden and the 3 projects from Stacy. To timestamp them today, November 22nd at 6:15 PM, received by the Wareham Planning Board.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. King and a second by Mr. Corbett. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Corbett, Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Mr. King,
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste. Mr. Swenson votes aye. It's 5-0-0. Thank you very much for bringing that in.
Do you have checks in there as well, too?
Yes.
Can I have those separately, please?
You want the check now?
Yes,
Separately?
please.
Sure.
Checks, did you ask for, Ken?
Yeah, two
Checks.
checks. Yeah.
You want a copy of the application with them? if you don't
Yeah, why don't you do
together?
that?
Okay,
Yeah.
actually, I'll. You can go ahead while I get my others.
Let's see. This is 140 right here. There's also the thumb drive that you asked for with the
Right.
documents on thumb drive, 3 checks.
Hmm?
Fire notifications and
And I'm not
definitive plan subdivision requirements. Fees, and that's for 150.
Do you get to vote on all special permits? Because if you do, then you have a possibility for a tie. Or do you only get to vote on special permits if someone says, I need to get clear on that.
That was discussed at the preliminary meeting, I know.
There's a
Yeah,
section.
I would say yes, that's what the rules and regulations call for, and, you know, we did have some discussion on that.
So while this is going on, I do want to announce that of our continued public hearings tonight, the North Carver Road Solar has requested a continuance. They are currently addressing a request that we've asked them for additional information from the Conservation Commission, excuse me. And this continuance will allow them time to provide the information and meet with them on the 1st. And this board will consider that request, and this board's also going to consider a request for continuance from Maritime Haven, the Robin Wood development project. They themselves are working on data that we've asked them for and are not ready to move forward. And so the board will be hearing that request as well. One of the things that, while we're finishing up, I want to make a comment. One of the things that we're working on is a procedure and a policy for this board to let the public know when changes like this come in on the last day of a scheduled public hearing. It's hard for the public when they come here to find out that a continuation has been requested just a few hours before. To that end, I did contact an abutter up at Robin Wood Road this afternoon and told that person of the request for continuance, and they were going to try and notify, they had a method to do so, to notify the other abutters who have shown interest in this project. So I hope that worked well. I did not have a way to notify anybody around the North Carver Road project. We're looking at different things we can do. One of the good ideas I believe is if we can create a Facebook page that is used as a bulletin board and a bulletin board only, where people can subscribe to it, and we could put notifications up there that a continuation has been requested, be advised. And if it's also important to know that if a continuation request is exactly that, it is a request. And this board will consider that request at tonight at the time that the hearing was scheduled to happen. We all set, Ken?
Yeah.
So to that end, In part of my research on doing this, I did talk to town council, and he has suggested that we open all the public hearings, we open all continued public hearings, and we close all public hearings with a vote, with a motion, a second, and a vote. So that will be my new process going forward, and hopefully it'll be a documented one soon enough. So I would take a motion to continue the North Carver Road, Wareham, Mass. Solar Project known as number 31-21 to December 13th.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Schultz and a second by Mr. Corbett. Any discussion? Call for a vote. Mr. Corbett.
Aye.
Mr. Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste.
Aye.
Mr. King.
Aye.
And Mr. Swenson votes yes. I would accept a motion to continue the Robinwood Road definitive subdivision plan 32-21 to December 13th.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Schultz and a second by Mr. Corbett. Mr. Corbett.
Aye.
Mr. Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste.
Aye.
Mr. King.
Aye.
Mr. Swenson votes aye, 5-0-0. Okay. I think we've got all preliminary business done. We will move to 2121 site plan review. I would, this is Fearing Hill Road. I would accept a motion to open the continued public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Schultz and a second by Mr. Corbett. Mr. Corbett.
Aye.
Mr. Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste.
Aye.
Mr. King.
Aye.
Mr. Swenson votes 5-0-0 to open the continued public hearing. Mr. Shanahan, how are you?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm well. I hope all of you are well also.
I want to talk, before we get going, I want to talk a little bit about timeline for the hydrogeologist tonight. We can do that at your leisure. I know you want to talk about tree count tonight.
Well, I wanted to talk about the schedule for your
Okay,
hydrogeology consultant also. So,
all right. Why don't you start with that?
well, I thought because the two issues, primary issues, there are certainly other issues still outstanding and pending, but two primary issues with regard to this project. And number one, the hydrogeological conditions at the site, for which, as the board is well aware, we've moved forward. We've funded the town in order that the planning board can hire Horsley Witten to do that study, and in particular, Neil Price to undertake that study. Over the last couple of weeks, our consultants, Mr. Price and Mr. Rowley, have worked together primarily to agree on the particular locations at the site at which percolation and test pits will be done, as well as where borings and monitoring wells will be located. With Mr. Rowley's input, it was agreed on all of the locations. And I want to report at this point that we'll have independent contractors out there on the 8th and 9th of December to put the test pits and perk tests in place. Depending on the soil conditions and our ability to access those particular locations, we may add a third day, December 10th, to do that also. We haven't yet got the exact days for which we'll bring in the driller. It's a gentleman by the name of Kyle Hoffman. But at this point, we're anticipating doing the drilling for the borings and the wells the following week, December 13th through December 17th. So that would be my update with regard to what we're in the process of doing in terms of the calendar, Mr. Chairman.
It's my understanding that once all that work is done, up till the middle of January will be data collection. And the middle of January to the end of January be data analysis and modeling, and we should be expecting a first report somewhere around the end of January, early part of February.
That's my understanding also.
Does that sound about right?
Correct.
Is there anything that you need from this board to stay on that timeline?
No, I appreciate the board having brought the consultant on board, and I very much appreciate Mr. Rowley's input and, quite honestly, immediate turnaround when we ask any questions of him.
Any questions on the hydrogeologist timeline and plan from the board at this point?
I think the only question I would have is there any disturbance of trees with them accessing?
If you're familiar with the site, it's very thickly covered.
Mhm.
So there'll certainly be some disturbance, not necessarily of trees being cut down,
But
But
just
as far
weaving,
as-
weaving around.
Oh,
You're
that's correct.
not gonna cut any timber to get it. to where
not
you
for the
need to go.
purpose of this, no.
Anyone else, comments or questions? Okay, want to move on to the tree
Yeah,
report?
the next matter I wanted to address, I submitted a letter to the board through Mr. Buckland back on November 10th with regard to the issue of tree removal. I know it's a sensitive issue, and I know it's one of great concern, not only
I
to
have-
the board, but
I've
to the
already read it.
public. A couple of matters I wanted to discuss, present from that letter, and certainly discuss any of them at the wish of the chair. But one of the matters I wanted to underscore is during previous sessions, and I haven't contested it because during previous sessions, we had not yet completed our tree inventory. We had not yet completed our timber evaluation. So there were assertions made, characterizations made with regard to the tree removal. And I chose not to contest them at that time, but we've reached a point now where we've submitted the required tree inventory, we've submitted a timber evaluation, and a couple of points I'd like to underscore. First of all, in past sessions, not by the board, but by certain members of the public, the term clear cutting has been put forth on a number of occasions. And I would respectfully suggest clear cutting is a word of art in terms of land development. You may have seen it among yourselves, either in this town or elsewhere, but clear cutting literally means going to a site and cutting down everything on that site in order to develop it. You see it most often with strip malls, shopping malls. You see it often with large industrial buildings or warehouses. This site admittedly has a large acreage for which we propose to cut trees, but we are not clear cutting this site. Your town bylaw, which you put together and now have on the books, does not allow clear cutting. You have required buffers on all sides of the property which prohibit clear cutting. But in this particular case, we have a 44-acre site, and we're proposing to take down 23 acres of trees. So it is not a clear cut, and I just wanted to indicate that for the record. The other thing I wanted to note is, and I think it's very important to understand, that while unfortunately there is the need to cut trees down for this project, it's important for the board and the public to understand that in all probability, whether this project goes forward or not, those trees are going to be cut down on that site because the landowners, Joe Crespi and Robert Ahern, have offstated the fact that they intend to develop this site, obviously for monetary purposes. So whether it's developed for the purpose of collecting rental income from a solar farm or otherwise going in and either they or someone else develops it as a single family subdivision, those trees will need to be removed. Now, the question or the assertion has come up in the past, well, how do we know that site could be developed for residential purposes? And it's a valid question, but I respectfully suggest to you that if you're aware of the history of that particular site, it's important to know that that's not an assertion that I've made. It's a contention made by the town of Wareham, and ultimately a very expensive assertion to me and a very revenue producing subject for the town of Wareham. And what I mean by that is historically, the Board of Water Commissioners for the fire district a number of years ago levied an order of betterment assessment on this particular site. And what the Board of Water Commissioners, the town of Wareham, did is they came in and said to the landowners, this site can be developed for 25 single-family houses. So for purposes of the betterment project, you were going to pay a betterment based on 25 house lots that we say you can develop there. Now, the landowners turned around first and said, well, look, we have no plans to develop at this point, so we shouldn't get the assessment. And the town came back and said, The assessment is based on the potential of the site, not the immediate intentions of the landowners. We can't do it that way. So the landowners took the matter to court. They challenged it. They did not win on the assessment, but when the town went into court to prove that the landowners could develop 25 single-family residential lots at that site, the court deemed the evidence insufficient for 25 lots, but came back and said, you can develop 20 house lots at this site. And therefore, the Board of Commissioners is entitled to levy the betterment based on your ability to put 25 house lots on there. 20, I'm sorry. So when I come in here and indicate to you that that is, and I don't mean it's an alternative, but I am indicating it by means of a comparison, because there is strong evidence. It's not my assertion. It's not speculation. It's the town's contention that this site could go forward and be developed as 20 house lots. And obviously, if 20 house lots are going in at that location, trees are coming down. And in the process, by the way, unlike a solar farm, where we're having gravel driveway and everything else is open and pervious, a subdivision would bring in a public way, bituminous pavement, 15 or 20 bituminous pavement driveways, rooftops, patios, and whatever other impervious characters would come with a residential subdivision. So again, I want to underscore that when I throw out that quote unquote comparison, and not an alternative, a comparison, it isn't based on speculation. It's based on the town of Wareham's contention as sustained by a court. And I'd respectfully suggest the town of Wareham can't have it both ways. You can't go to court and say, these guys have 20 house lots here, make them pay us for 20 house lots, and turn around and say, well, don't tell me the trees are coming down because you don't know you have the house lots. I'd go a step further and indicate to you, I do have a recent email, actually last Thursday, for Wendy Lemieux over at the fire district that outlines that history. But equally important, what I have is evidence that last Monday, I came to the town hall and I paid the betterment assessment based on 20 house lots of $232,000 to the town of Wareham. So it's an important issue. I didn't write that check based on speculation. And Mr. Chairman, if I may present to the board.
Sure. Thank you.
The other issue I'd like to present to the board is basically what I would call the environmental trade-off. Once you accept the fact that one way or the other, the site is going to be developed, whether for this particular solar development or for residential subdivision, now you look at the environmental trade-off. And obviously, we have a number of people in the public and on this board that are concerned about the environment. They're concerned about climate change. We've heard presentations with regard to both over the last many sessions. But I think it's important to note that this particular project, and these aren't my statistics, they're the EPA's greenhouse gas calculator statistics, this solar project will offset over 4,800 metric tons of carbon dioxide each year during the life of this project. Now, this project is at least 20 or 25 years, and there are extensions available to us to extend the life of that project. So you were talking about 48 metric tons of carbon dioxide offset each year that project is there. Now, what does that translate to? It's the equivalent of taking 12 million passenger car miles driven and their fossil fuel emissions off the road each year. Now, by comparison, we're proposing to cut down 23 acres of trees to put this facility in. By comparison, it would take 5,900 acres of forest, 5,900 acres to sequester that much carbon dioxide in any given year. That's a 257-to-1 comparison of the solar project offset versus the sequestration from these 23 acres of trees. So again, given an opportunity to do this project without taking down trees, we can and do when we have the opportunity. We put projects on rooftops, we put canopies in parking lots, and we occasionally are able to find a landowner who will lease us land with the attributes necessary to do a project like this, where we don't have to cut trees to this degree. But I do think it's important to have a handle on the comparison between residential development and solar development. And if you want to talk about climate change and you want to talk about environmental impact, I think the statistics are very important. The last thing I'd point out is something Mr. King brought up a number of months ago, but I didn't forget it. We went back to it. Mr. King suggested a number, I believe it was you, Mr. King, I apologize if it was someone else, suggested that another project, another developer had committed not to take any money or profit from the timber from the trees taken down on a particular site. And I told them I'd have to check into that. That wasn't my call. We did look into that. We hired a Massachusetts licensed forester to do a timber evaluation of this 20 acres trees. He came back. I submitted that evaluation to the board. He is an expert that this board has accepted his findings in the past with other projects. He deemed basically that these 23 acres of trees, while they're there, really are not quality trees in their present condition. His timber evaluation was $19,690 for those trees. I say this partially facetiously. If the town would rather have the trees than the money, we'll cut them down and you can take them away. I'm sure that's not what Mr. King's intention was. What we would do is we would, based on that evaluation, write a check to the town for $19,690, and the town can deem what it would like to do with that money, whether it be in the manner of other plantings throughout the town or something similar to that, but we'll commit not to reap any profit from the trees being removed. The last thing I would point out, and it's separate and distinct from that, but it falls in the category of economic benefit from a solar project. I, in the last 6 years, have been involved in 43 different solar projects, both here in Massachusetts and New York. The real estate tax laws for solar projects are different than other real estate that you have before you and other different proposals. Specifically, our solar projects are personal property. It's not like we're building a building that you assess based on the building value or the revenue of that particular building. There are different rules that apply to that. What most towns have found to be the best for the town, and therefore I have always done that with every one of my projects in both states, is I explore a pilot agreement, which is basically a payment in lieu of taxes, where we work with the Board of Selectmen and the assessors, and we determine a reasonable figure, and we write a check each year to the town for that figure in lieu of taxes on that particular solar equipment. The taxes on the land remain the same. You don't lose that tax, but you pick up the pilot payment. I've already explored this issue with Jackie Nichols. She made the smiling comment that, why don't you wait and get your permit and then come talk to me? So I said, I understand your position, but I would indicate that if this does go forward and we enter into what I think is a reasonable and comparable pilot agreement with the town of Wareham, this particular project will mean literally hundreds of thousands of dollars under the pilot agreement going forward. And I think it's important to note that revenue to the town, because there's no offset to the town. unlike many projects to come in, and let's take that residential subdivision I spoke about earlier. Residential subdivision comes in, the first thing it does, if you build 20 houses, you're going to put another 40 plus children into your school system. That does not come cheap. You put a burden on your fire, your police, and your emergency responders in the town, or a solar project doesn't do that. You generate traffic in town. And I don't mean just the cars, the homeowners that are coming and going to the site. And again, 20 homes is at least 40 cars coming and going every day with their guests. But we're all used to the Amazon Prime trucks that come every day up and down the street, and all of the other services that are rendered to these 20 homes at that particular location. So you take that traffic off the table, but you still get the revenue. We don't generate any illumination or glare. We don't light the project at all. Our construction time is roughly 3 months. Once we're done, a pickup truck comes in 3 or 4 times a year to inspect, repair, landscape. You don't have a 20-lot subdivision where people are bringing in cement trucks, lumber trucks, and the subdivision is dragged out for however long it takes to build the 20 homes, which is certainly longer than 3 months. And lastly, we generate no waste. There's no hazardous waste. There's no trash. There's nothing generated from this site that would put any burden on the town. So again, I want to point out that it's revenue without offset by straining your town services or your infrastructure. So I'm not necessarily looking for the board to accept or say wow to any of that, but I did think it was important at this stage in the proceedings, as things are starting to come together and we have the data to back it up, to at least present these as facts from me, address any questions the board might have. You may want to save it until mid-January when you know where the hydrogeological study is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions from the board? Mr. King, anything?
None.
Mr. Baptiste? Mr. Corbett?
One point, they're buildable if they first.
Pardon me?
The 20 homes we talk about can be built if site first.
I presume so.
I think you made it on purpose.
Well, the town of Wareham told us we're not going to have a problem and just took like $232,000 saying, trust me, that's 20 building lots. If it doesn't perk, if the site's not developable, my next stop after the planning board is the appellate tax board, where I'm going to ask for my $232,000.
Mr. Schultz?
3 questions through you to Mr. Shanahan. These are just points of clarification. Did you state that the tree inventory has been completed? And
It has,
submitted?
sir, and submitted.
Do we have that?
Yeah.
Where?
It's on the site.
Okay, I didn't see it, so.
Yeah, it's
all
there.
right. Okay, so the same thing for the timber evaluations?
Correct.
And then, oh, this was the November 10th. Okay, so maybe I didn't read all the attachments. All right, thank you. I have seen this. I didn't read all the attachments. Last question.
I'm doing well. Could you stop there?
No, you'll do okay on this one too. You provided all the estimates and calculations for the offsets. Did you submit all that data and the source for your numbers?
That's part of the package also,
Also
sir.
in that November? 10th
That's
one?
correct.
Okay. Those were my questions. I got to go back and read that more closely.
Thank you.
I have no comments or questions. I will turn to Mr. Raleigh. Any comments or questions at this point?
No, I think I'd prefer to wait for the Horsley Witten report. I think a lot will bear on that.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think.
Sure,
that's-
I understand.
Mr. Buckland, Mr. Shaheen, any comments or questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the water district is not the town of Wareham.
Ooh,
You're 2 separate entities, even though they collect the money from the collector.
you're aware.
I am very much aware.
Okay, I'm not, Mr. Shaheen, anything? Okay, at this point, we'll open up for comments or questions from the public. And the way this works is, this is our, I'm guessing now, 4th, 5th, or 6th session at this. I would like you to come up and talk to us and educate us and inform us of the important data that we need to understand as we contemplate this project. I would ask you not to tell us things that you've told us before. I would ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. I would ask you to be professional about it. So with that said, who wants to go first? I'm not buying this. Please. I knew I could count on you, Annie.
Sorry.
Annie, I'm gonna thank you.
My blood pressure is a little high. I'm sorry.
Let's be calm.
Okay. Mr. Shanahan's array of reasons that this is a good thing sounds like the last gasp of a dinosaur proposition. And I say that because when he said that Con Edison, for whom he works, does rooftops and canopies, they're also now advertising battery storage on individual homes on rooftops so that you can have your energy 24/7, Tesla batteries. So, and the fellow of Blue Wave Solar, who in 2017, when Mr. Buckland and the board was trying to put limits on the size of solar, Blue Wave Solar convinced him that you had to have large swaths of land to come up with the right amount of mitigation, energy mitigation. And now there's the same guy, the same Blue Wave is talking about snap together panels like Legos that will be floated on water bodies. And because of a recognition, there is not the land to do this. There is an outcry from farmers, from residents. This is a residential hill that is an entity that is essential to the water storage and supply distribution. I was at the Horseshoe Mill River on the Weweantic, the beautiful park that $1.2 million has been spent on. And I talked to all the conservationists that I could find, and everyone said this Fairing Hill is the watershed for the Weweantic River. If you want the Weweantic to become the beautiful river that's starting to heal, the fish are starting to flow, that's the watershed. My land behind it, that's the watershed to my wetlands, to my wet meadows, to the meadows that go down to the Weweantic. So I hadn't planned on that. The other thing that I want to say is that when he talks about all the other projects, the one I've recently been in touch with on a Gate of Heaven in, it's only 5 miles from Con Edison in Valhalla. They initially supported the very similar project, 20-something acres forested to be clear cut in a cemetery. So in a sense, that's, you know, that's land that's already served its purpose, unlike Fairing Hill. And they just shot that down. They revisited it. There are strong remarks from the Energy Center at Pace University. They got additional information from a lot of sources. It's extremely well
Need
documented.
to wrap up, Annie.
I will. And they canceled this project. It is not on their best interest in so many ways like ours to carry it forth.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak to the Fairing Hill project tonight, please?
Sorry, every other will share. I didn't quite make enough of all of these.
Go that way. Make sure I'll share with Carl. Or you guys go ahead. I got,
Did you send this in to-
Tonight, I sent them this evening. Thank you. You'll have all of this in the record. A lot more. Eric Lintula, Squirrel Island Road, West Wareham, just adjacent to Fairing Hill. Whew, a lot of new information tonight. I'm going to focus specifically on one thing tonight, though. The following material is being submitted in support of the document that Save the Pine Barrens sent to the Planning Board and Conservation Commission on November 7th, 2021, which is a fabulous document. Their document clearly states and shows credible evidence to warrant a historic and archaeological survey under Article 12 performance standards. And to further give credence to the detailed information they sent, I am providing a small portion of another detailed document from the Massachusetts Historical Commission, Historic and Archaeological Resources of Southeastern Massachusetts, a framework for preservation decisions. If you look carefully at the third page, which shows the map, which is in the document, this one here. Yeah. Shows major transportation routes in southeastern Massachusetts. 2 major routes go east and west, 4 go north and south. What is highlighted in the circle involves the Fairing Hill site, the native trail corridor, and the north directional trails that branch off of it. The fourth page. Next page. Shows detailed and present day road trails present day road map of the Wareham area. Note the highlighted native trail and the area circled, which includes the Weweanta Conservation Area and the proposed area of the solar field just to its left.
Eric, I'm sorry, here?
Yes. The next page, page 5, shows both the contact period native trails map and an overall map view of the east-west native trail corridor, which includes Fairing Hill Road, which is circled. Also note here to the east and west road of Route 6, which is much further south of this trail, and to the east-west Route 195, which did not exist long ago. I'll read a few important passages from the Massachusetts Historical Commission document, just a couple. Part C, transportation corridors. During the contact period, native trail relied on an extensive overland trail system as well as water transportation. Most important within the overland network were a series of interregional trails which connected southeast Massachusetts with settlements and resource areas north, west, and south of the study unit. There were 6 primary corridors along these, which these trails ran. 4 of these were north-south oriented. The other 2 were east-west. And again, go back to the very first map, number 3.
Eric, I'm going to extend your time a little, okay?
Just a teeny bit here.
Please.
Important, yes. The second of the north-south trails went south from the Blue Hills through Abington and the Bridgewaters, forded the Taunton River at Titicut, and continued southeast through Middleborough to Wareham. This trail, interestingly, ends on Fairing Hill Road. A second east-west trail closer to the Buzzards Bay coast from Cape Cod to the west through Wareham and Rochester across the Acushnet River and continued through Dartmouth and Fall River to the Taunton River estuary. This is the native trail, which is Fairing Hill Road. There's a lot of documentation. If you do the overlays of the maps from the state information to any of the road maps, it's very clear that Fairing Hill Road is a native trail. And those when the branches going north are right there where the Fairing Hill come right over that landscape right there at that point. So again, what they proposed in the from the Pine, Save the Pine Barrens is an important document. So hopefully you will take a close look at it and follow suit. And there'll be more information to come.
I'm sure there will be. Thank you. Anyone else to speak tonight? Seeing, Mr. Shannon, would you care to respond to anything?
Only when the public's done.
I think public is done. I'm declaring them done.
Just two quick responses, Mr. Chairman. With regard to the gentleman who just presented, if I can't get a copy of that packet tonight, I would ask that I get one through Mr. Buckland. Thank you. I would indicate to the chair and to the board, as I've said previously, there are no historic or archaeological significant or protected locations on this site. We'll review this and obviously respond to it accordingly. The other thing is Ms. Hughes referenced, I mentioned earlier my 41 or 42 projects that I've done and had approved over the last 6 years. The one she cited in Mount Pleasant, New York, was the only one that wasn't approved. Interestingly enough, while Con Ed is putting solar panels on the town hall in Mount Pleasant and building parking canopy panels over the parking lot at Town Hall in Mount Pleasant ruled against a ground-mounted system by Con Edison. The interesting thing about that, and I think it bears putting on the record, is the planning board had in fact voted 5-2 prior to the public hearing on what they call a seeker or an environmental assessment of a project.
I'm sorry, they voted 5-2 for what?
A negative declaration with regard to environmental impact. And they not only ruled that 22 categories of environmental impact were not in effect, they actually issued narratives on all 22 subject matters indicating why they had found that there was no environmental impact of the project. Public hearing opened, public comment was received. Planning board quite candidly caved to public comment and denied the project on the basis of its environmental impact. They didn't cancel the project. What they caused was a 54-page complaint filed in Superior Court against the planning board. So I wouldn't say that project's been canceled. I would say it's been delayed, but I think that's important. Any other questions the board might have, I'd be happy to address.
Comments or questions, anyone? No. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving.
yeah, you too. Before you go, we're going to continue this public hearing until the 13th, and you're going to present at that time some noise information, I believe.
That is correct.
Okay.
Hopefully, no noise information.
Let me,
Mr. Chairman, do you need a motion to continue?
yeah, we're going to, I'm getting a form out here and we're going to need a motion. Let me write this down as I do it. So today is 11/22 for the Fearing Hill, boy, that's hard to say, Fearing Hill Solar public hearing of
It is the 22nd to the
yeah.
13th.
We're going to go to 12/13. Five days. After public hearing close. Okay, I'd accept a motion to continue this hearing on Fearing Hill Solar to December 13th, 2021, at which time the applicant will present information regarding noise.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Schultz and a second by Mr. King. I'll call for a vote. Mr. Corbett. Mr. Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste.
Aye.
Mr. King.
Aye.
And Mr. Swenson votes aye, 500.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more request, if I may.
Sure.
If I might have a second agenda item for the 13th. I, like the 5 submissions previously, have a preliminary subdivision plan on record with this board. I would ask to be put on the agenda for the 13th to submit the definitive subdivision plan at that.
That's
time.
fine. Can you make a note of that? We'll do, that's for the same property.
Correct.
So the December 13th public hearing for Fearing Hill will be noise and acceptance of a definitive plan.
I'd respectfully suggest it's 2 separate agenda items.
Sure,
Thank you.
two, but are you going to present or are you just going to,
Just going to submit just as
as we did earlier?
correct.
Thank you. Okay, that's great. If you come sign this for me. Yeah, anywhere's fine. That's great. Thank you. Okay. We did a vote. We continued it, right? Okay. Next on the agenda is public hearing, a new public hearing.
We didn't actually continue 3321, did we?
Oh, good call. Oh, yes, we did. We did 3121.
3221.
We did not do 3321.
Not yet.
Right, all right. So the 3321 is a ground mounted solar facility off of Route 25. It's called Zero Route 25. It's also known as Fletcher property. This is for the public's awareness. This is the project that we're having a debate about. Did the A&R freeze their zoning prior to town meeting or not? They did it with an A&R. Everybody else did it with a subdivision plan. The agreement has been made between the applicant and the board that we will wait for the Attorney General to rule on the solar bylaw amendment that was passed at the June town meeting, because if the Attorney General happens to deny that, all our discussion is moot. And if the Attorney General approves it, then we can have the debate about did the A&R freeze their zoning or not. So we're waiting. The A&R the Attorney General extended their review time to sometime in November. So we've got 8 days right now to find out what's going on. So can they extend again? Do you know?
I don't know if they can or not. That's up to them.
Okay. Yes.
There's a. Nancy McHale, Chair of the Solar Bylaw Committee. There is a new letter that the town clerk posted today regarding that solar bylaw amendment. And they have asked for, the Attorney General has asked for an extension until December 25th.
Really?
Really?
Unbelievable.
Okay, so just to throw that up in the air.
Oh,
Okay, I just.
Adding another 30 days.
So, yeah, so they've.
I'm
got at
still
least-
blaming this on Brenda. That's why, they haven't got through Brenda Ekstrom's one. So they haven't even begun this one yet. So,
I'm not blaming anybody.
Okay.
I'm just delivering what's on the
all
town.
right, thank
clerk's
you. That's good
website.
to know. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Mr. Buckman, I would ask that you reach out to Betsy and see if she wants to wait till December 25th now.
I'll do that.
All right.
Well, yeah, that's Christmas.
It's a Christmas present.
Look, I didn't know it was Monday, all right? Have we covered everything there now?
We still need to did we vote?
No, I would accept a motion to continue. Wait a minute, I gotta think
It's
about this.
December 13th is what she asked for. You can continue to December 13th and
Okay.
then proceed from there.
I take a motion to continue project 33-21, Zero Route 25 Solar, also known as Fletcher Solar, until December 13th.
So moved.
And I have a motion by Mr. Scholes, a second by Mr. Corbett. Mr. King,
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste, Mr. Scholes.
Aye.
Mr. Corbett, and Mr. Swenson votes aye. So that's 5-0-0. We will continue that hearing till December 13th. I bet you we don't have an answer by then either. Okay, new public hearing. This is 36-21, a modification to a special permit site plan review for the Bay Point Club. This is phase 4. For the public's edification, Bay Point is, I'll speak for you, Mr. Fay, almost done with phase 1, actively kicked off on phase 2. And now looking to finish up on phase 4, which can be found on map 9 lots 1004B and 1004A. And this is for new townhouse buildings. Just some housekeeping that we need to do here. In all transparency is that it's my understanding, Mr. Fay, that phase 4 is, and as I know, is on property that is currently owned by the Wareham Redevelopment Authority.
Correct.
And you and the redevelopment authority, and in all honesty, I used to be part of, but I'm not anymore, have an agreement for you to purchase that land. Mr. Rowley has worked with town council, and I believe that that this unique condition of doing a permit or a special permit and a subdivision modification on a piece of property that you don't own is being covered with language in the permit. Mr. Rowley, can you help me here?
To the best of my recollection, in the meeting we had with Mr. Buckland, Mr. Fay, and Attorney Bowen, was that the current purchase and sale agreement needed to be modified with certain language, which I am not up to speed on in terms of the technical aspects of that. Mr. Bowen certainly was. But that was the only way in which it really could be tied to the first 3 phases, was to make some language in the changes in that. So I would look to Mr. Fay to find out whether or not that's been done.
So-
Mr. Chairman, point of order, do you need a
Let me
motion
just-
to open the public meeting?
Pardon me?
You need a motion to open the public hearing.
Okay, I was trying
You
to
need
take
to
care of this
advertise,
ahead
you
of
need
time.
to actually make the announcement for the public hearing as per what was in the paper. Read the ad.
So I would just ask then, Mr. Fay, I assume that you're working with redevelopment authority and Attorney Bowen to get that wording in the purchase and
So
sale?
Attorney William Rosa from Win and Win and Attorney Bowen are coordinating that documentation.
Okay. This is the first public hearing for phase 4 at Bay Point. It will go like our other public hearings. The applicant will make a presentation to the board. They've already done this once. To give us an idea, they've done this twice before, actually, over the last year. So we'll see some more detail tonight on what's going on. We'll have board questions, and then we'll open it to the public, and we'll do that under the same guidelines as we do all our public hearings. So I would need a motion to open the public hearing on, pardon me? Oh, that's right. Do I have to read it? Where do I don't have it. Thank you, Aaron. I'm sorry. You know how long I would have been looking in there? I need to add that bullet to my process doc, all right?
It's something we haven't.
Yeah. Sorry.
There it is. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I apologize. The Wareham Planning Board will hold a public hearing on November 22nd, 2021 at 6 PM in room 320 of the Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. 02571 to consider petition number 36-21 for a special permit and site plan review from the requirements of Article 5, Section 580 and Article 15 of the Wareham zoning bylaws to Bay Point Club LLC, 1275 Wampanoag Trail, Suite 14, East Providence, Rhode Island, 2915, seeking construction of Phase 4 major modification to an existing approved special permit and site plan review for 7 new townhouse buildings with 52 dwelling units and a new parking lot for existing clubhouse located at 19 Bay Point Drive, Wareham, Mass. Assessor maps 9 lots 1004.B and 1004A through 1-B in the CR, which is a Conference Recreational Zoning District. Copy of the plan and the application is on file at the Wareham Planning Department at 54 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. 02571, and may be reviewed during regular business hours. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on a proposed plan should appear at the time and place designated. That's from the Wareham Planning Board, myself, Chairman. First notice on November 4th, second notice on November 11th. Okay, I think we're ready. If I covered all the bases? Okay, Mr. Fay, hi Chris, how are you? I don't know this gentleman.
So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation. This evening, we have with us Chris Henderson, our lead architect.
You can remove your mask if you like. That's, you,
Yes, it is.
yeah, it was very muffled, Tim.
Okay. Chris Henderson, our lead architect. Herman Peralta from Beta Engineering is going to make a presentation this evening on traffic. Chris Reynolds, who is with us this evening as well. And we have Josh Rosen from Principal Engineering on Zoom. If he has the opportunity to be let in to be a participant, that would be very helpful. So we thought this evening we would start with a presentation from Beta Engineering and Herman Peralta on the overall site and the traffic portion of the development.
Okay,
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, my name is Herman Peralta. I'm a senior traffic engineer with Beta Group out of our Lincoln, Rhode Island office. I am a registered professional engineer. I'm here before the board tonight to present our findings for the updated traffic report that was originally completed in June 2015 as part of the original Bay Point Club residential development. Just a quick background again on the original proposal, the residential development proposed 94 residential units to be constructed in 3 phases. Phase 1 is completed and phases 2 and 3 are under construction. Since then, a final phase has been included in the proposed development that includes 52 units within the Bay Point residential development. I'm going to briefly discuss the original traffic study that was done again back in June 2015. And at the same time, go over the findings as part of the updated traffic study that was recently completed. As part of the traffic study back in June 2015, to assess the potential traffic impacts of the proposed residential development, we completed the following task. And either we updated or revised the traffic study based on the updated traffic study. We had originally completed an inventory of the physical roadway characteristics of Onset Avenue and Bay Point Drive relating to safety and operations. And as part of the updated traffic study, we verified the original findings, which remain valid. We had also obtained crash data and traffic volume data from Mass DOT along Onset Avenue, contained in the original study. Again, as part of the updated traffic study, we obtained more recent crash data and traffic volume data on Onset Avenue from Mass DOT. Just to verify the original safety-related findings and to also verify the traffic volume trend along Onset Avenue. We also estimated the future traffic that will be generated by the proposed residential development, including the phase 4 of the proposal, using the data from the ITE trip generation manual. We then evaluated the existing and future conditions resulting from both the original proposal and also the phase 4 of the project. Just briefly going over the project area. The site is located on the northerly side of Onset Avenue, a 2-lane minor arterial running through the southeasterly portion of the town, just south of Cranberry Highway. Land use in the immediate area can be described as primarily single-family homes along Onset Avenue, including off intersecting side streets. Main access to for the original proposal will be provided at the unsignalized intersection of Bay Point Drive with Onset Avenue. Obviously, main access to the phase 4 of the project will also be provided at that intersection. Based upon the operating characteristics of Onset Avenue, we focused on the unsignalized intersection of Onset Avenue with Bay Point Drive for our analysis. In regards to the safety analysis part of the study, the geometry of Onset Avenue in the project area was originally investigated for safety and operations, again, as part of the June 2015 traffic study, and was field verified as part of the updated traffic study. Specifically, the stopping site distances were reviewed at the intersection of Onset Avenue and Bay Point Drive, and were found to provide more than adequate stopping site distances. Both the physical characteristics of Onset Avenue and the measured stopping site distances at the intersection of Onset and Bay Point Drive again remain valid. So based upon this information and review of the existing roadway conditions as part of both the original and updated traffic study, it does not appear that there are any significant safety issues within the project area. It should be noted, though, that presently there was no observed stop line at the Bay Point Drive southbound approach to Onset Avenue. So as such, we recommend at a minimum that a stop line be provided for that southbound approach on Bay Point Drive. Also, as part of the safety analysis, again, we reviewed crash data from Mass DOT as part of the original study in June 2015. We reviewed between 2010 and 2012. Now, as part of our updated traffic study, we looked at more recent crash data from 2017 to 2019. Both study periods, there were actually no recorded crashes at this study intersection of Bay Point Drive with Onset Avenue. So upon completing a review of existing conditions, we then estimated the trips that will be generated by both the original proposal and also the phase 4 of the project. The original proposal resulted in approximately 60 trips during the morning peak hour.
How many?
60. And then about 78 trips during the afternoon peak hour. Phase 4 of the project will add approximately an additional 21 trips during the morning peak hour and approximately 27 trips during the afternoon. So that's a total of about 81 trips in the morning and then about 105 trips in the afternoon. So upon completing the trip estimate, operational analysis was completed at the study intersection of Onset Avenue with Bay Point Drive. Again, we specifically looked at the morning and afternoon peak hours, which represents the worst case combination of site-related traffic and also the peak hour traffic on the adjacent servicing roadway. And in this case, it's Onset Avenue. So under both the original study and under the updated traffic study, the intersection of Bay Point Drive and Onset Avenue will operate efficiently with minimal delays at the study intersection. And at that point, I can take any questions from the board.
Any questions from the board? Mr. I think, go ahead, Mr. Schultz.
First, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the engineer. I'm leading up to a secondary question. What is the new trip forecast and the impact on Onset Avenue? What's the tolerance? So how much more traffic could that intersection bear?
It can bear a lot more traffic because the reason why on Onset Avenue, just to put some perspective on the traffic on Onset Avenue, traffic has actually decreased on Onset Avenue from 2013 to 2019, decreased about 10%. So that's an annual decline of about 1.7% annually from 2010 to 2019. So right now, during a peak hour along Onset Avenue, it services about 400 vehicles, about 200 vehicles eastbound and about 200 vehicles westbound. Typically for a roadway like Onset Avenue, it has a capacity of about 1,500 vehicles per hour per lane, which is 3,000 vehicles per hour. So if you look at the 400 versus 3,000, you're looking about less than 15% of its capacity.
Thank you. That will help. My next question, Mr. Chairman, is through you to Mr. Buckland. Mr. Buckland, how, as a board member, I don't expect the applicant to look at all future impacts, but as you know, we're looking at another project which will be putting traffic onto Onset Avenue. How, as a board member, am I supposed to think about that, if at all? Do I have to just treat them completely independently?
Unfortunately, you have to follow the criteria of the zoning bylaw and what it calls for in the impact assessment there. For traffic, you can determine, I think by state law, state regulations, that anything that would have maybe a 5% impact on the intersection would be something that you could consider. That is, that the project, however many intersections away, that there's still 5% of the impact that you have. You could consider what the effect would be. One of the things you can't do is do a corridor traffic study and try to figure out the long range planning that you have to do as a planning board member overall, and what traffic would mean on Onset Avenue.
Okay, so basically I need to treat them independently, but the good news is, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, but there seems to be significant capacity right now, so I probably am not concerned.
That's probably right.
Thank you for your advice.
Anything
Can I
else?
ask what the new development is coming to Onset Ave? Is that a fair question?
Yeah, I think it's fair to open, it's open for public hearing, right?
Yeah.
It's on Robin Wood Way, which is two intersections down.
Yeah.
There's a proposal for a 7-home subdivision.
Okay.
Which will, yeah, with 7 homes, that's very negligible impact on the traffic.
Well, that's what I was trying to,
Yeah.
given your numbers, I think we're okay.
Comments, questions? Okay, next.
Great.
Could I have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry, please.
Did you consider the Cahoon Road Onset Avenue intersection as well?
So we've been attempting to get with Mr. Menard regularly with the Beta Engineering Group, and we have not been able to do that. So part of this study was not closing Cahoon Road at the end. So the answer is no, but we're trying to get to the town engineering side of the program to determine the correct way to do it.
Maybe I can help facilitate that.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah.
And my thought is that would be a separate conversation that would then do an update to this to be able to speak
Yeah.
intelligently to that.
I think so. I don't know if it's part of this discussion at this point.
It's not part of what we're doing here. I'm trying to figure out what the impact would be on that as well, other than, it would be the same to Onset Ave. It might be different internally, and that's how we would look at it once we figured out that that was closed. But it's not part of what we're doing here tonight.
Right.
Is your question the impact on Cahoon Road?
Yeah, the impact on Cahoon Road and the intersection with Onset Avenue.
Right, based on the site access and layout, the majority of the traffic will be going on Bay Point Drive. Oh, very little traffic will be going on Cahoon Road onto Onset Avenue.
So
Yeah,
Herman, we're talking about, there's another gentleman in your group that's looking at creating a cul-de-sac at the end of Cahoon Road. So it's a different issue that's being addressed.
If I may, for the edification of the public and or any board members, Cahoon Road is a road, I'm gonna just call it a back door into the Bay Point property on the north side of the property. And Bay Point and Mr. Fay have been in discussions about blocking that or changing that, making it an emergency vehicle only. And the question being brought up was, how would any changes around Cahoon Road impact the traffic study? And I think your answer, which makes perfect sense to me, given that Phase 4 project is almost immediately off of Onset Ave at Bay Point Drive, it would have minimal, if any, impact to the current traffic report. Does that sound about right to people? Charlie, you're looking at me like I got three heads.
I could add a little color to your analysis if you would like me to.
I would
Only
love
got-
you to.
I've only got two heads.
Pardon me?
I've only got two heads, not three.
So Cahoon Road, as you come onto it off of Onset Ave, is undersized, no sidewalks, was, I believe, built in the 50s. I think it's been around for quite some time. As the world has evolved with GPS and with directional assistance from vehicles, the GPS, if you were coming to a Bay Point golf event or a wedding, takes you frequently into Bay Point Drive through Cahoon Road.
Would you point out Bay Point Drive? Yeah.
So ideally, we would want people to come in to play golf into the main entrance, and the golf congregates here and the wedding functions congregate here. But GPS takes people in off of Onset onto Cahoon Road and down Cahoon Road to the event. We've contacted Google. We've tried everything that we know how to do, and we can't get that condition fixed. So a lot of people coming to play golf will go down this road. Cahoon residents have, over time, lobbied the town to do something about that condition. Widen the road, put in sidewalks, terminate at the end with a cul-de-sac. In addition to that, the Bay Point Villages, which is a development that was done in the late 80s. We don't really have anything to do with that. Had as a condition of their approval that they couldn't use that road, that they couldn't exit coming out that way. They needed to come out the main entrance of Bay Point. The Cahoon Road residents maintain that many people come out of that development and use that road, and many of the residents there admit that they frequently do that. So we think that we would be creating a better condition for Cahoon Road residents where they wouldn't endure the traffic brought to the Bay Point Club, or the ability for the Bay Point Village residents to use that road as ingress egress. At the end of that cul-de-sac, we proposed an emergency vehicle access to allow emergency vehicles in and out. That's what's currently being discussed We've had extended conversation with the Bay Point Village residents as well as the Cahoon Road residents. There seems to be a lot of support from that at this point today. Some people not so much, but the majority, I think, are supporting that conversation. And we're working with the town and trying to coordinate with Mr. Menard as to what the appropriate level of work to accomplish that objective is. And we don't have an answer to that as we sit here today.
All right, so this is a little off topic, but Charlie, I know you may have something you want to say, or can we move on?
Just a question, if I may.
Sure.
Mr. Peralta, did you take in, I didn't see anything in your traffic report, and be quite honest, I haven't had a chance to really digest all of it. But from what I looked through, you didn't really make any comment or put the numbers together that suggested how many trips that would be coming out of Bay Point Drive, assuming that Cahoon Road is blocked off at some point in the future. Let's take the worst case scenario and say everything comes out Bay Point Drive. I didn't see anything in your report that talked about anything other than the 94 units, which has already been approved, the 52 new ones, a casual reference to the 60 condo units, which are up at the end. But I didn't see any talk in there about the traffic which might be generated from the use of the pavilion and the use of the golf course. And wondering if it may not impact the level of service in Onset Avenue per se, but there are internal circulation aspects about this, and I'm wondering if you looked at that at all.
Your first question regarding the worst case, we did look at worst case. We took all the traffic that will be generated by phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 on Bay Point Drive.
But you didn't take into consideration the additional traffic from the
We did.
the 60 units?
We did. The existing traffic that we use are actual existing traffic from what's out there now, which is that additional traffic from the already built condos and residential
Is that
units.
reflected somewhere in the numbers that I see in your report?
Yes, it's in the back. When you look at existing traffic conditions, it includes both existing traffic and also being conservative, taking phase 1, 2, 3 traffic and adding it on top of the existing.
Okay. How about the pavilion and the golf course traffic?
Well, whatever traffic that we counted that intersection is inclusive of all of that, whatever's in that development. Now, typically, we only look at the AM and PM, which is the worst case, as I pointed out earlier, which is site-generated traffic from the residential development on top of the adjacent peak traffic on Onset Avenue, which is typical your commuter peak. That's the worst case that you want to look at.
No, why wouldn't it include traffic that's generated from those other two particular sources?
The existing traffic volumes, again, does include whatever traffic has been generated within that entire area, Bay Point Drive itself,
Including the
including
golf
traffic
course?
from either the pavilion or whatever the existing condos are. And
Okay,
then
just-
we added the phase 1, 2, 3 trips on top of
Okay.
that.
I just didn't see that particular detail in there, that's all.
So golf course traffic is an interesting analysis because it arrives and departs in 12-minute increments, because people come for a tea time that are spread 12 minutes apart, and there's no group arrival and group departure. It's really spread out from early in the morning to late in the day in 12-minute increments. So it's as traffic goes, the best possible scenario, because it's spread out over time. With respect to the pavilion building, the events that we have are typically on a weekend evening, and would be outside probably when we're counting traffic events, but they do arrive typically at a time certain and depart at over an hour of a time certain, but it's really way off the charts in terms of when that is. It's 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday. So the pavilion traffic's really minimal, and the golf course traffic is spread out in 12-minute increments.
Mr. Schultz? Okay. Moving on. I'm sorry? Okay, anything else that you cared to present tonight, Mr. Fay?
Yes, thank you very much. Well done. Chris Henderson is going to take a tour around the elevations of the 7 buildings and the townhouse units.
Okay.
Chris. Thank you, Vanna.
Can you grab a mic and try to talk into the mic at the same time?
Is the person on Zoom able to hear things and?
They are in the call.
Okay,
Okay, hello, my name is Chris Henderson. I'm principal and architect at Jefferson Group Architects in Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
if you want to lift that to yourself, that makes it easier.
Yeah, okay. All right, so you've seen the site plan. We've got a mixture of 6, 7, 8, and 9 unit buildings. They consist of 3 different types of units. Two bedroom units, and then a third unit, which is a 3-bedroom unit, which just has a bump out on each end of the building. And so we have 14 of those. And the rest are the 2-bedroom units that just vary in square footage. So it's a combination, each building is a combination of the different footprints. So the elevations that we have are, we have fronts and backs of the building because we have some buildings that face the street and some buildings that don't. So we have the rear of the building in some cases is sort of your entry point, and in other cases it's off the street on Bay Point. So we've addressed both sides of the building with a little bit of board and batten, as you can see on what we're calling the rear here because it faces Bay Point. And I'll show you some concept imagery at the end that can show you a little bit more of what we're thinking about. But it's mostly a 2-story structure with a small entry portal and some board and batten and some decorative overhang at each entryway. And in some of the buildings, we have garages under the buildings, which you see down here in this, what we're calling the front. And in that elevation as well, we have balconies that are over the entryways. This is the more of a typical elevation, which is just the 2-story structure without the garage under the building. So the proportion is slightly different. We're dealing with a lot of different grades throughout the property. So each building has a sort of unique condition, and we've designed the 2-story units with the smaller footprints so that we can step these buildings. As you can see in each one of these, they're stepping at 1-foot intervals, either 1 unit or 2 units at a time, so that we can deal with the changing grades. We have a rendering of both sides of one of the units, showing you the basic proportions of the building and massing. We have small porches and when we need them for grading. This one shows you the back side or front side, we're calling it on this, I think. Yep. And here we have some balconies that are railing and have railings on them, and some balconies that are recessed in the middle units and sort of tucked in, both creating an entryway for the building. So here we have the floor plans for each unit type. We have the first floor plan for unit 1. You can see we have a living room, dining room, and kitchen, an open plan with a small lavette. Stair going up to the second floor. And we have a master bedroom. This is that end unit, the largest suite, largest unit out of the group. This type of unit here is, has the garage under, so it's just slightly different configuration to that. So these are both of the end units. And then we have the second floor of those end units here, which shows you the 2 bedrooms and a shared bath, and also a bath in one of the bedrooms in the front, and a small seating area, study. One of the central units here has the porches, and again, the open living room, dining room, kitchen, and lavette. This plan is very similar to that, and this is the second floor of this type 2 unit, which has the bedroom in the front, bedroom in the back, study, and a shared bath, and a bath in the front unit. These are unit 3. They're slightly smaller unit. This has a dining room, living room, galley kitchen, and a small bathroom. Each one of these are just slightly different on the same configuration. The second floor having the 2 bedrooms and a bath, 2 baths. Third page is just showing you our concept for the exterior, sort of a New England cottage, arts and craft type feel, siding and some metal roof maybe, and some shingled roofs. So that's pretty much it. Any questions?
It's a quick one. Unit 1 is about 1,800 square feet. Am I reading? I just want to make sure I'm reading these right.
That's
Units 2 are about 1,500 square feet, and units 3 are about 1,300 square feet.
Approximately, yes.
Okay. Questions on this side?
Nope.
Okay, and we've seen a lot of this before, so.
Right.
You have more material, Mr. Fay?
So I have available our engineer, Josh Rosen, to answer any questions that anyone might have. And we're available to keep talking and tell you more if you'd like us
Okay.
to.
So one of the things I'm learning to do here is to turn to our Mr. Raleigh, our town engineer, and talk to him about his timeline on his evaluation and report and what he's thinking about. So just to ground everybody a little bit on where we're going from a schedule perspective. For me, his report is one of the linchpins of doing this whole project. So with that, Mr. Raleigh, I'd ask you for your comments, if you don't mind.
Certainly. I've been looking at all of the documentation which was supplied as a part of your file, but in particular, sheets 3 and 4 of the plan set. Sheet 3 is the general overall layout of the project site, gives you just the location, the building with respect to the road layout and so forth. Gives you some parking lot dimensions, some of the smaller details that are there. The 4th sheet is the contour sheet, and some days ago or a couple of weeks ago, I think it might have been right after the public hearing we had. Yes, public hearing that we had. I had requested that the site plan be increased from a 2-foot contour site plan to a 1-foot contour site plan. Gratefully, that has been done because it's given me the opportunity to really look at the plan in some detail. And I've found some things which have been a concern, and I don't have written comments tonight. I will forward these right as soon as I can get them to you and to Mr. Fay and to Tom Principi's office. But specifically, first of all, just a couple of basic comments that I'd like to make to the board with regard to this. That, and I don't know how the board feels about it, but one of the things which was paramount to the initial project, and this goes back to phases 1, 2, and 3, when they were first approved as a special permit, was that you as a board determined the density of the unit count for the property that is a part of that at that time. And also the setbacks for buildings from property to each other and also to property boundaries. I see that as a similar question that you may have to discuss or debate, because this is a unique situation in that the kinds of buildings that you're being looked at here, with the exception of one building in phase 2, is a completely different sort of a fabrication. It, on the one parcel of land it's on, the density itself is significantly greater than when you consider the entire parcel as a whole. So I'm thinking more or less in terms of clarity, but you may have your own thoughts about this, that you may have to make a determination at some point during these deliberations to modify the density, which was approved under phases 1, 2, and 3, because the density for 52 more units on roughly 6 acres of land is significantly higher than what they were on the first 3 phases, namely because they was first set out as basically individual lots for each 1 or 2 units. And this one, you've got 52 all combined in one.
If I may, can I clarification?
Yeah, sure.
Given that the approach that the applicant is taking as to being a modification to an existing subdivision and site plan review, one of the modifications that this board needs to acknowledge is that those densities are different. I think that's your
correct.
point.
That's my point. And that you may have to put into writing somehow the fact that the density that you're creating out of this particular phase affects the overall density for the project as it was approved under phases 1, 2, and 3.
So I think the action for this board at this time is to understand what the existing density requirements or specifications, if you will, are in the site in phase 1, 2, and 3 permits, as well as any setbacks that are in there. I think that's where you're going next.
Yes, because you established the setbacks. So under the conference recreational portion of the bylaw, it says that the planning board shall establish those. So you don't go to the table for normal setbacks for single family homes or for commercial space or anything like that and pick out the number in the table.
So if I need to interrupt for a second and make sure everyone's aware that this property is in a zoning district called Conference and Recreational in Wareham. It's very unique. It's one of a kind. It is like I said, it's one of a kind. It's the only one of its nature in Wareham, and it has some specific nuances to it that we need to be cognizant of. And I think that's what you're pointing out here.
Yeah, I would suggest to you that I think it was 94 units within phases 1, 2, and 3 altogether, clustered on X number of acres. I forget what it was, 140 some odd acres. When you add this in, it's an incremental increase in that density, not so much an increase in the total acreage, but a total count of units is going to change that a little bit. It may not be significant when you look at it all, but I think it's just something that would be good to clarify as a part of the deliberation so that there's no issue that comes back on that.
So just 2 points of clarification, if I may.
Sure.
The total number of units is 84, not 92 or what you referenced.
What phases are we talking about? Just to
The
be,
original approval of phases 1, 2, 3 are 84 units.
I stand corrected. I thought it was 94.
And in addition to that, we're adding
84?
84, correct. There's 56 units in the current phase that we're working on right now, and there was 28 units in the first phase that we completed. It also needs to be referenced that we're adding additional land to what we're
Sure.
doing. right?
Sure.
So there's additional compensation there. And when you look at the site overall at 147 acres, plus the addition of the acreage that we'll be adding in the acquisition of the town property, the density appears to be in proportion
Sure.
to the size of the property that we're developing. We also think that we're adding diversity to the project as well. We think we're adding diversity of look. We're adding diversity of price point, and we think diversity is good when you're creating a larger development like we're creating to the overall program. So those are kind of my thoughts that I just wanted to share as you deliberate on Mr. Rowley's points.
My reaction to what Mr. Rowley's pointing out is that it's just some data in the current permits that calls out a ratio, if you will, and we need to see what the new one is. We need to, when we're doing our modifications, we modify it to what the new ones is, what the new densities are, and to give this board an opportunity to see what that impact is. It may be very small.
Sure.
We don't, but we just don't want to have something in the air down the road when we're done with this.
And the other part of it was the setbacks. There were certain setbacks that were allowed to street lines, to property boundaries and between buildings. I don't think the setback between these buildings is any less than what it was in the first phases, but to be sure, it's just one of those things you want to take a look at and make mention of, because it is a little bit different. Even though it's a part of the whole, it's slightly different in character. Just as a technical thing, and I'll put this all on a list that will go to Mr. Principi, but we're not dealing with a definitive plan. So when you look at the plan and it says definitive plan, it's not a definitive plan, it's your site plan. Definitive plan only refers to anything that is within subdivision control. And it's not that. We're not changing any street lines. So it's not a definitive subdivision plan you're looking at. It's strictly the site plan. So in terms of what it says on the plan itself, I'm going to ask that he take off any reference to definitive plan. A few other things that I pointed out and wrote down that he's going to have to take a look at is that the parking spaces are shown on the plan as 9 by 18, I believe it is. Site plan review and the parking requirements call for this parking stalls to be 9.5 by 19. So he needs to take a look at that. I took a look at the turning movements when you come in off of Bay Point Drive for building A and B. Those are the first two units, which are parallel to Bay Point Drive as you come in off of Onset Avenue. Those buildings have a separate driveway, at least on the westerly side, with parallel parking. It's laid out in such a way that I don't believe an emergency vehicle can get into that driveway from either end. The turning movement is going to be such that if you try to put just a single axle truck in there, he's not going to make it. So he needs to put a template on that to be sure that you can make those turns. I'm not concerned about an aerial ladder. I'm concerned about an engine, a fire engine. So it's something that I think should be looked at by the Onset Fire District and with their apparatus to be sure that they can get in that particular location. The turns are very sharp. And you've got parking that are very, very close to both ends. So it's almost impossible to get in there. That roadway is narrow to begin with. It's only one lane wide because it's one way. But both ends are almost impossible to get in. So you can't do it.
I want to make sure I understand, Charlie. You're referring to this entrance and this entrance here?
That's correct. Right. There's no visitor parking shown on the plan. It does take away all of the parking that presumably was for the pavilion, which is across the street. So just one general question is, what are you going to do about the parking once this is built out and you've taken away the parking area that's on that site right now that presumably was used for the parking for the pavilion? What's going to happen to it? On that parcel itself, on the phase 1 plans, it was labeled with an easement over the majority of the property. I'm not sure exactly what the language of that easement is, but you're not going to be able to build buildings on the easement. So at some point in time, that easement is going to have to be removed from the parcel to make it buildable.
Which parcel is that, Charlie?
The subject parcel we're looking at.
And who are the beneficiaries of the easement?
That I don't know because I don't know what the
I think
language of the
I
easement
think he
says.
knows.
I do know.
He may know,
Listen to this one.
in which, if you're the beneficiaries, that's one thing.
We are.
But if it's a easement of record and it's attached to that property, I believe you should get that easement language removed somehow. Otherwise, you're going to put a building on an easement. I don't think you can.
So it's my understanding, and I'm not a lawyer, that as this property goes into Bay Point, easements that are between the same parties collapse of their own use. So there's an easement between the Bay Point Club and Weedick or the owner of the property. The Bay Point Club acquires it and becomes the benefactor of that easement. And now Bay Point is both, and from a title perspective, it collapses on its own weight, is my understanding.
You
My
may be
attorney.
absolutely right. In which-
Our town council has heard that explanation and nodded his head too, under the tree at the picnic table, if you remember.
In which case I would simply make it a point with the board to consider.
Yep.
Whether it becomes a condition of approval that in fact is the case. So
Sure.
you don't end up with a question from the building inspector. This plan still shows an easement. You can't put a building on an easement. So just raise it as an issue. There's nothing on the plan that suggests that there's any dumpster location or trash removal facilities. There's no central location for someone driving in with a US mail truck and dropping off any mail. I think one other thing that I noted, there are no sidewalks in the property that connect to any other portion of the property. In other words, you can't get from this site across Bay Point Drive to the pavilion because there's no sidewalk along Bay Point Drive on that side of the road. There's no direct connection between there and the golf course facility. So if something could be incorporated there, it would be a good thing. The only other thing I think I need to take up your time on tonight would be with respect to some of the stormwater. And Mr. Principi's response to me, I understood some of the things that he wrote, and it's just a couple of pages long. But we agreed on the 1 foot contours. And again, it was very helpful to me because it made it much easier to figure out what was going on. But I had suggested that there should be catch basins at the beginning of some paved waterways that lead to the drainage area that's behind the back of it. And in particular, the one which is closest to the southeast corner. It's a paved waterway that leads to a grassy slope, which leads to a catch basin. And the rim of the catch basin is only about 2.5 inches below the top grade that is shown behind a retaining wall that's right on the property boundary. I think that's not a good situation because with the grassy swale, you're going to have the potential for the grate of that catch basin to plug up with debris. Wintertime, if it freezes over, you're going to have the potential for ponding and puddling there. I would like to see some other means of collecting that runoff before it gets to that point. Mr. Principi said that he can't put a catch basin in the corner of the parking lot because of the sewer line that's there. Well, you could alter the location of a sewer line slightly. You could also put the catch basin in a shorter paved waterway, which is not right at the corner of the pavement, but in some way which would intercept that water before it got to the grassy area. The same with the other end. So I think those are important things. I am looking at the stormwater carefully. I've got some concerns about the ultimate discharge of it because it's up against some other property. And I realize that I believe Mr. Principi's calculations suggests that the final runoff to that same spot is slightly less than what it gets today. If that is the case, and it doesn't do any harm to the abutting property, then we'll see where we go from there. But I'm not at that point yet. I am aware that at the low point off that property between there and Onset Avenue, there have been some significant flooding issues in years past because of the way the groundwater is. It's not where this development is, but it's off the property close to it. So I certainly don't want to see runoff that's coming from the drainage area be discharged toward that if it's going to have an impact on that property. That's something which all stormwater calculations need to take into account. I think that's probably it for now. Again, I will put all of this in writing to you, but those first 2 pages, 3 and 4, are of utmost importance with respect to the layout of the buildings, the location of the buildings, some of the runoff characteristics that are inside. I did note also on that single lane driveway for buildings A and B, part of the lane which allows access is actually in the layout of Bay Point Drive. I don't think it should be. I think it should be outside the layout of Bay Point Drive. You may not. Yes, there's a portion of it. It may be hard to see on that small plan, but if you look at the larger plan, there's probably half of the lane which you drive in was actually within the layout. So they're constructing the driveway for those units actually in the layout of Bay Point Drive. And really, Bay Point Drive should be reserved for utilities, what everything else that may have to go in there at some point in time.
Okay.
So
What type of timeline are you looking at? And I'm not pressuring, I'm not saying, I just want a rough idea.
I'm going to try and get these done in the next week.
Oh,
These comments that I've
sure.
said tonight and some others that are here, they're ready to be typed up, but I haven't finished the drainage calculations. I want to be sure of that. I want to look at the detail sheets, which I didn't bring with me tonight. There are some things there which I don't need to take the board's time. Tom and I can go over that.
So assuming, let's just say 10 days, Charlie gets his report done. That's not going to give you, and that would not give your team enough time to respond for the.
Let's stay with Charlie's 1 week and our team will respond.
I take that back. We got 3 weeks till the next meeting.
Right.
That's what I was missing there. So, and you're comfortable coming back to this
We
board?
will absolutely be back and we will absolutely, as we have in the past, go through line by line
Sure.
and
Sure.
address each of these comments.
Where I'm going with this is I'm paying particular attention to scheduling continued hearings,
Sure.
making sure that the data and the response to the data is in a reasonable time frame. And I'm hearing that we're in good shape here to pick this discussion back up, to respond to your report by your team on the 13th of December.
We will be prepared and we will have information to Mr. Rowley before that. And hopefully we've got this cycle of being able to meet and kind of go through issue by issue to get to a resolution,
Sure.
not necessarily ours and
Good.
not necessarily Mr. Rowley's.
Good. Do you have more material
I'm-
tonight?
I'm happy to answer whatever questions anyone may have.
Okay, so I will open it to the board and to our planners and our town engineer again before we go to the public. Comments or questions here? Mr. Schultz,
None at this time.
Mr. Baptiste, Mr. King,
No, not at this
Ms.
time.
Gleason, I should have asked you before. I'm sorry. You have it. Do you have any questions? Okay. With that, I'll open it to the public. I'll ask them to come up, identify themselves. I'd ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes, given that this is the first time the public has had the opportunity to share data with us. It'll all be new. I would ask people not to come up and repeat what we've already heard, if you could. So with that, let's begin. Sir. Sure. We need to put all these back together to hand them back to. You work with him.
If you want to keep it, that's fine. Make sure you bring it next time. All right.
Yeah. Hi, please identify yourself.
My name is Bill Reed. I'm president of the Greenleaf Condominium Trust, which owns the condo that's on the border of the line of Project 5, or whatever you call it. I'd like to compliment Tim on the houses he built. I think they're absolutely beautiful up there. Anytime you can put a $300,000 to $400,000 home 300 yards away from me where I live, it's just going to increase the cost of my house. So they're very nice and they're very good. This particular section he's doing now, I've got a few questions on it, and this gentleman over here, Charlie, kind of stole my thunder on it, on some of it. One was the slope of the land on the east side of this area, which slopes down to our condominium. It's going to be flooded, and we're going to flood out down there. I'm not an architect or anything like that, and I'm not into that stuff, but I've gone up there and I've walked up there to see it and everything, but putting all these houses up there and everything, there's going to need to be something done there in terms of vegetation or something to put in there, clean it up and put something in there, or we're going to be flooded because it's going to go straight down into our driveway. We have one drain, but it's not going to be enough for that. The road in the back, I don't have any idea what that's all about. That's this road that comes way out here, right along our property line and back in again. Is that for carts, for golf carts, or is that for travel?
That's a berm. That's not a road.
Oh, it's a berm.
That's the drainage area. It's not a berm.
Oh, it has these little cars on it or something. That's nothing?
No.
Is that this here?
Yes, yes.
So this is the 9th green
Yep,
here,
yep.
and we're building a retention feature.
Oh.
It's going to be vegetated, and it will be a retention basin. That's where the water's going.
Okay. It's not a road.
No, it's a feature to the green.
What's this here?
More of the
Okay.
outlet of the
Okay, enough said.
retention.
I got it. So that settles that one. You ate a lot of my 3 minutes incidentally. I don't know. I asked him that. I asked him what the question mark was there. The roads in and out of this thing don't make a lot of sense to me. And I think somebody brought that up a moment ago. To get to the practice green, to get to the golf and so on and so forth. It just doesn't seem to be there's very many access ways to do that. And I don't know why I'm saying that. It doesn't affect the condo at all, but it's just a point I made. Oh, the only other last point, that was the main point there. The last point I have is this gentleman back here who witnessed traffic on Onset Ave and says it's pretty good and it's coming down. I invite you to my house at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday. You will never believe what you said. That's it.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Good evening. My name's Chris Muller. I live at 19 Bay Point Drive Extension. I have a couple of questions. One is the traffic study stating that it was done by in 2019, I think is disingenuous because the current property was not developed the way it is now. We have 61 homes in Bay Point Village. There are another 84 that are going to be planned in 2 and 3, of which only 28 are existing. And then there's going to be this next phase 4. We're going to get to 140 total. That means that there'll be basically 2.5 times the number of homes in this current existing traffic pattern going in and out of Bay Point Drive, which makes it just illogical to think that it's only going to be a minor 5% change when you're doubling the number of homes, more than doubling the number of homes. And the idea that it's just because there were no accidents yet, if anybody has driven that road, you know that there's a rise for the left-hand turn coming out of Onset Village, which means that the traffic coming towards the village for the left-hand turn lane is exposed. It is a dangerous place. We're just lucky that there haven't been accidents there. I'm concerned that, as was noted, that Google sends people through Cahoon Road into the Bay Point Village. I think, Mr. Swenson, you might remember I came by here a few months ago because I live at 19 Bay Point Drive Extension, which is where they come. I have had a honey wagon recently show up on a Saturday afternoon to clean out my sewers, but my porta potties, which I don't have porta potties, it was on the front. I have helped a young woman go to the pavilion for a bridal shower with 2 cases of wine. She had been dropped off by an Uber driver at my front door. We have had numerous golfers on trying to figure out why we're not the Starters Pro Shop. And it's all because 19 Bay Point Drive is the non-existent 19th hole lounge. There is no reason for them to be 19 Bay Point. That's why they get directed to my address, is because there is no address that actually exists there. And I have talked to the town assessor, and the new pavilion has put up a number 10 because of the new lounge there. That is not an existing number. I think that the easiest way to stop this isn't to put a cul-de-sac on Cahoon Road. It's to change the address of the Bay Point Pavilion and the club. There's no reason for it to be 19. It's in the middle of nowhere. So I just think that's also disingenuous, that the reason it comes is Google sends them. If you actually Google 19 Bay Point Drive right now, you will see my house. And it's nowhere near the pavilion. And Mr. Fay and I have talked about this. I've talked to his wife about this. I deliver packages to their house, to their pavilion. I also deliver mail, and there's no mailing address. I get bills, and I keep waiting for a set of golf clubs from Titleist, but they just won't give them. But I do think there are some other issues, and I have no issue with. I actually think the development and the diversity and the mixed use is a good thing. I do think the density is going to be a problem with the way that this current phase is going to be extended. I also am not pleased with the fact that phase 1 is not yet completed. As a resident of Bay Point Village, just in the last 2 weeks, all the sewer heads have been raised for paving, and we have orange cones the entire way along Bay Point Drive. From what I remember from city development, this is not a time when asphalt can be laid in Massachusetts. I'm guessing that if we don't get above a few days above 60 degrees, they're not going to be able to pave that road soon, which means that there's going to be an issue for plowing, for road access. That work should have been done months ago. Paving is scheduled to start on Friday. It'll be in 3 increments. That's why the heights were raised.
Okay.
So
That'll be an issue for the.
I need you to wrap up.
Okay, so I just think that we have to, before we approve a phase 4, that phases 1, 2, and 3 should be a little bit more completed than they are now, because we haven't got streetlights, we haven't got some other things that.
So can I take a moment?
Yeah,
and-
Sure, hold 1 minute, Tim. What was your name again?
Chris Muller, Muller.
Thank you, Chris. Mr. Fay, you care to respond?
Well, I'd care to confirm a lot of what Mr. Muller is saying. The Pavilion Building address is 10 Bay Point Drive. The clubhouse address is 19 Bay Point Drive. Your residence is 19 Bay Point Drive Extension. So another conversation that we have been having at length with the town is, what the heck do we do about this? How do we fix this condition? Do you change the name of Bay Point Drive Extension to another name? Do you change the name of Bay Point Drive to another name? I can change a number, but it's the extension. It's that little.
But it's only because 19 and 19 appear twice. You're
Right.
and as.
But a lot of people, I think, shoot for Bay Point Drive and get Bay Point Drive Extension.
Let's not solve this tonight.
No, but it's
I under-
something
but-
that's an ongoing.
and we've,
So it's a real issue.
it is an issue.
And I know that delivery trucks go to your house. I know that we do think you have some drivers in the basement. Titleist says we left them at the house and we don't know why,
All
but
right.
I say that jokingly. It's a real issue. And here's the real issue. it's life safety. When they make a phone call and they need emergency vehicle support, and it's 10 Bay Point Drive or extension or 19, and their first trip, the fire engines come in hot and they come into the circle at the Pavilion Building, and we just go like this and they wave and go, okay. And they're real good. They know they're going somewhere else, but whatever that delay is, can't be a good thing when someone's,
Decided, same thing.
Okay.
Somebody happened there.
when
All right.
someone's in need. So
I don't think that's.
confirmation of what Mr. Mueller
Understood.
is saying.
I don't think that's part of tonight's, but I will reach out to Jackie. I had high hopes that the town assessor could provide some paths to fixing this, but I don't want to muddle two different issues here. All right. Who's next to speak, please?
Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting for
Yeah.
the speaker, through you to Mr. Buckland,
Yeah.
have occupancy agreements been granted for phases 1, 2, and 3? Or are they still open?
Occupancy has taken place in phase one.
So that's complete.
Yeah,
Okay.
Well, they're not all done yet. I don't think, are they?
All 28 units are conveyed.
So phase 1 is complete. Well, if it's got an occupancy agreement, it's done.
We're in the process in the next week or so of concluding the site work. Pardon me?
I'm confused.
the certificate of occupancy is issued for the buildings, not for the site work. So maybe that's where the confusion you're getting in this.
Except when we went through our previous workshop, we were assured that occupancy agreements would not be granted until site work was done.
Not practical, that can.
Wait, this is a separate question. Thank you. This is a board issue.
Charlie, you have something for me here? You gonna bail me out?
Yes, the work that's to be done, as Mr. Fay has suggested, is the paving. There may be some other minor issues there, but in place of a covenant, they had secured the road construction with a cost estimate and posted security with the town. They also had an itemized list of things that are covered by that security. So that is in place. When that happens, occupancy permits can be issued because the money is still there to finish the road. So that still has to be done. And it's under the security that the town has that can happen.
Well, then I don't understand what you're saying. This is what Mr. Buckland told me.
He said it had, the occupancy permits have been issued for phase one because it's the only part of the construction that has buildings on it. Phases 2 and 3 don't have any buildings yet.
But you're saying the site work for phase 1 is not done.
Insofar as there are small things left on the list, yes,
Can you
that's
guys
correct.
take this
Yes,
offline?
thank you. But we need to go back and reopen our previous discussion.
I'll leave that to you.
Thank you.
Sir,
Hi, my name's Steve Pentowski. I live on Short Neck Road. I haven't heard Short Neck Road throughout this whole conversation. So am I to assume that they will not have access to these apartments through my street?
I have to be honest with you. I haven't heard of that road either. I don't know where you're at.
Short Neck Road is right there going into the golf course. It's right there. Well, not on this map. I am
So Short Neck Road
right there.
has an emergency gate for ingress and egress, and there's a cul-de-sac here for turnaround for the development. So,
So that's only going to be an emergency access.
yes. we won't have people going on.
Okay. I don't mind walkers, but I don't want cars. And
It's only, it's emergency ingress, egress.
appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Does that
That
address your?
answers my question.
I'm glad to hear that. Can, Aaron, would you mind turning that to the audience and point out to them where we were talking about, if you don't mind? Well, you're trapped in there, huh? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that's what I heard the mumbling about. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Who's next to speak tonight?
My name is David McPhee and I live at 48 Cahoon Road. I am part of the 28 houses and phase 1 is not complete. the 28 homeowners got together and we have a list of a punch list of over 142 issues. We have roofing issues, vinyl siding, windows, gutters, landscape, drainage. As you can hear, I've been waiting 26 months to get my driveway paved. Every time it pours out, my garage floods. We can't get them to work on it. So phase one is not completed. That's just the outside of the house. On the inside of the house, I have a heating system, which is called step warm, and it's radiant heat, electrical radiant heat, and it was not installed properly. Now, Massachusetts law is it cannot get below 64 degrees at nighttime or 68 degrees in the daytime. I can't get my bathrooms to go above 63 degrees. My mudroom does not go above 58. Now, in one of the bathrooms, it won't go up to 63. It runs 24/7. But that thermostat, they hooked it to the 2 bedrooms. So the bedrooms are like a sauna. They're not supposed to go above 78 degrees. So
And where exactly is your home?
48 Cahoon Road. Right here. So I don't know how Stone Street got to start phase 2 without phase 1 being completed. There's many other homeowners here that will tell you that it's not finished. We need these 142 issues to be looked at. I also have a second heating system, a backup heating system from, we have an LG converter and it has a heat pump, but they put the vents 25 feet in the ceiling. Heat vents are supposed to be on the floor. So I had to buy a ceiling fan just to blow the heat down. So there's 2 systems they did not install correctly. There's many more issues. I could stay up here for 2 hours telling you. That's just the outside of the house, the inside. The golf course, we have issues with the golf course. The exit road that they want to stop, the Bay Point Villages don't want it closed. People in Cahoon Road don't want it closed. It'd be nice if anybody would talk to the homeowners about this.
David, can I get your last name? again?
McPhee, M-A-C, P as in Peter, H-E-E.
All right, anything else?
That's it. I
Thank you
just want to
very
make
much.
sure that these are construction issues and not HOA issues. Thank you.
Thank you. More comments tonight? Please.
Good evening. I'm Deb McDonald, Precinct 2. I'm a resident of Bay Point Village condominium. Density, traffic, and safety issues are my main concerns. Mr. Fay has indicated this evening it is still his intention to seek the closing of Cahoon Road. Cahoon is a public way. It goes all the way from Onset Avenue to the intersection of Jetty Court. If you close Cahoon, you've got 61 units in Bay Point Village, a privately owned single-family home at number 53 Cahoon, 84 units in Wynwood Pines 1 through 3, phase 2, another 52 units. I mean, phase 4, another 52 units. That's 198 homes, most of which would have 2 vehicles going in and out. If we close Cahoon Road, we have 1 means of egress. We also have additional traffic generated by patrons of a public 18-hole golf course, pro shop, clubhouse, bar and restaurant, separate function hall, homeowner guests, trash trucks, and deliveries from FedEx, UPS, Amazon, furniture delivery, etc. In addition to vehicular traffic, golf carts cross Bay Point Drive and Cahoon Road in 6 places. Golf carts are frequently seen driving down Cahoon to Bay Point Drive and vice versa. We've seen an increase in traffic just with the completion of the 28 homes in the first phase. We are very concerned about the density and the congestion generated by all of the traffic. If someone on Oakmont Drive, which is part of Bay Point Village, Bay Point Drive Extension, or the new Phase 1 Windward Pines units has a medical emergency and Cahoon Road is not available, the extra response time could cost a life or a building in the event of a fire. Mr. Fay has suggested an emergency access road, which would be gated. Who is going to maintain that road? Who's going to plow that road? It also would be built across a Eversource right-of-way, which is very close to the railroad tracks. Bay Point is a for-profit golf course. For them to want to build their golf course across Cahoon Road and close it is at the expense of Bay Point Village homeowners, for whom there is not only zero benefit, but also the added costs of having to maintain an access road in perpetuity. While it was the intent back in 1987 to restrict drivers leaving Bay Point Village from turning left onto Cahoon Road, the ZBA never intended a gate or barrier to vehicles. This is clearly stated in a September 23, 1997 memo from Ken Ferrara, ZBA Chair, to the Board of Selectmen Chair. If there is even the slightest chance that Cahoon Road will be blocked off, the safety of hundreds of homeowners will be at risk. I strongly oppose adding another 52 units and another possibly 104 more vehicles into an area already dealing with a large increase in traffic. Thank you. I have a copy of that memorandum.
I'd like to have a copy of that. Next, please. May I have this one or do you need?
You may have that.
Thank you very much.
My name is Steve Costa, C-O-S-T-A. I live at 35 Bay Point Drive, which is the new development. I'm going to just go back to the gentleman who was talking about density and I just have some general questions. According to that map that was up before for the new area phase 4, I think it said there were 91 spaces, parking spaces. And what is the normal ratio of number of cars to houses? I know the gentleman before when he was talking about the solar place that he said 20 house lots would mean 40 cars. Is that kind of the standard that you would use to measure it?
I don't know. I refer back to the parking standards, which I think are in Article 9 of our zoning bylaws that have a required number of parking spots per unit.
Okay. So if this is 52 units.
I don't want to quote you a number. I mean,
Okay,
I mean, I
okay.
can look
No,
it up
that's-
right now if you want.
No,
me to.
no.
But
That's fine.
look at
I
Article,
just-
look at. no,
because it
Article
looks
9 is
very crowded
landscaping, isn't
as-
it?
It's 2 parking spots per unit.
Two
per
per
unit.
unit.
So I know some of them have garages and some of them don't as far as what they're proposing. But I know it just says on the document, I don't have the whole picture here, but that it was 91 spaces is what it said. So 52 times 2 is 104. So that's just for the residents, I would think. And then where does it come into play for visitors? And I think you made mention of that as far as visitors areas and how big does that have to be, et cetera. So this area that they have there with 52 houses that are going in, townhouses, some 2, some 3-bedroom houses. Where is there like open space for those people who are living there? Because, you know, the pavilion's across the street, the pro shop's right behind it, the golf course is off of that, so that's not an area that would be considered, I don't think, free space for families, visitors, or whatever, to, you know, walk around, kids play. I mean, if you have 3-bedroom houses, you could have kids there, plus school buses and stuff, et cetera. So that's one of my concerns. And it's more of the density of that and where the free space is for the people and, enough parking. And so the other thing that, I won't go too much in depth with it, but David was talking about the idea of things being complete, not complete, et cetera. There are a lot of us here, we can all add to the list. But one of the things I want to bring up is that we were told that this paving that isn't done was going to be started 2 weeks ago. That's what came from the transition committee to the people in the development. And they're supposed to do the driveways because we don't have the second coat on the driveways and the street. The way I understood the timing of it, the process, they're going to do the driveways first and then go do the streets. Now, this is the first tonight that I heard, and I don't know about the rest of the people, that supposedly paving is going to start this Friday, is what I heard. I haven't seen anything on that. There was no general announcement that I'm aware of. And it's Thanksgiving weekend. So there are going to be visitors to the various houses, I'm sure. We have people coming to visit us, staying overnight, parking cars in the driveway, and we're told we're not going to be able to park cars in the driveway, because of the pavement. They don't want to ruin the pavement, and I totally agree. But we haven't been told where we're going to park, when we're going to do it. And again, this is the first that I've heard about Friday. Maybe other people have heard this. I just haven't. But I have asked the question of we have the transition committee that works with Stone Street. And as of this morning, nobody knew when it was going to happen. Last week, I postponed some stuff that I was going to have done on my house, on the interior, because I wasn't sure the guy could bring his truck, get his equipment out. I didn't know what day they were going to come and pave. So there's a very large lack of communication between the existing 28 homeowners and the developer. And
I need you to wrap up.
okay, so my thing is this: if we're going to carry this over now to phase 2 and phase 3, et cetera, and 4, more communication needs to be done to help
Understood.
people out. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else to speak? This will be our last speaker tonight. We'll have many more opportunities. I expect many more public hearings. Your name?
My name is Aaron Souza, S-O-U-Z-A, 39 Bay Point Drive. And I want to reiterate the parking again, okay? I came from a condo area where we had less than 2 cars per unit. The roads were narrow. And what happened is when we had overflow parking for holidays, summer times, the cars had no place to go. They parked down on the street. They didn't even have common parking areas. It became a problem for plows, where to put the snow when there were snowstorms, okay? The other concern I have is, are these people going to be allowed to park on Bay Point Drive should there be company? If somebody has company, it's going to be 3 or 4 cars. They're going to have to go somewhere. Okay, and that's one question. Second one is Bay Point Drive going to be widened? Because it's pretty narrow now. I'm sure overflow parking, the way that design is, they're probably going to wind up on Bay Point Drive. Okay. And the other thing is common parking areas. Okay, you've got to allow for more than, even though the plan may say 1 plus 8.5 cars per unit, you're going to have people with 2 cars, maybe 3. We have that situation. I live in phase 1 in Bay Point Drive. And that's the case. Some people have 3 and there's a potential for 4. Okay, I mean, so there's got to be some availability for these people, whether there's a common area where you have, like we have, areas where you can park 2 and 3 cars outside of people's driveways along the street. I'm just very sensitive to that because my first condo unit, we never had that. And when we had the first snowstorm, it was disastrous. They were putting snow on the yards, broke all the, the decorative fences and flowers. Without any available greenery, you have a problem. And then when you have company, if people start stacking their cars near each other, the roads are kind of narrow. I don't know how they're going to navigate. That has to be considered,
Understood.
okay?
All right, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate your input. Mr. Fay?
Can I just ask a quick question?
You certainly step up. Last one. That's what I said before. I don't know why.
Sorry.
It's all
Just real
right.
quick.
And your name is?
My name is Paul Bollier. Paul Bollier.
Come
And
on.
the question is, did the redevelopment authority talk to the present owners about any affordable houses going in here?
You'd have to ask the redevelopment authority that.
Okay.
I
Or
can't
does
speak for them
developer
right now.
understand or be able to answer that as well?
I would imagine.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out the density.
Sure.
That's all.
Mr. Fay, we've heard some from the public. I assume we're going to continue this public hearing till the 13th. We already talked about that. Did you have any responses that you wanted to make at this time?
No.
Okay.
Appreciate everyone's time and everyone's comments and look forward to bringing this to conclusion.
Okay, if you could please sign this continuation request for me. Yeah.
Can I just, everybody who's leaving, you're going to miss I was going to make an announcement later. Just to let you know, on December 8th, the Solar Bylaws Study Committee is going to have a public comment on revisions to the solar bylaw. So if you're interested, December 8th, 3 PM, I think it's going to be in room 27, but we're taking input
This is just
on
asking for.
revising the
yeah,
solar
yeah.
bylaw. Let your friends and neighbors
Continuation
know,
till the
please.
13th. Thank you very much. Good. Yeah, good thing you did.
We'll be in touch shortly.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we continue the public hearing on Bay Point Phase 4 till December 13th.
I have a motion and a second. I have a motion from Mr. Schultz and a second from Mr. Corbett. Can we step back, please? To continue this public hearing till the 13th. Any discussion? Hearing, seeing none. Mr. Corbett. Mr. Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste. Mr. King.
Aye.
Mr. Swenson votes aye, 5-0-0. To the agenda. Does anyone have comment on, can we step out in the hall, please? Does anyone have any comments on the master plan? Seeing and hearing none, I'll move on.
One comment.
One comment.
As part of the solar bylaw study committee, we're trying to reconcile the new bylaw with the master plan. So I'll be looking at that just as an FYI.
I would ask if you would consider maybe presenting to this board the nuances that you're dealing with, because I know they're going to be fascinating and it's going to be very telling in terms of how we maintain and update our master plan. I would think. So do you understand where I'm going?
Yeah, I haven't gotten that far, but absolutely. I think one of the key feedback that we're hearing is that these plans that we create, bylaws that we create, should reconcile with the master plan or be guided by, and
They should.
As we've noted, the master plan is fairly expansive and many things could fall under that. So anyway, I'm working on that.
A liaison updates. Mr. Corbett, do you have any?
No.
Mr. Schultz, you have one, I know.
Yes, everybody left, but I wanted to please, everyone from the board, if you're available, we are trying to craft a new solar bylaw. I was disheartened to hear that we won't have guidance from the AG until the end of December, but on December 8th at 3 PM at the next solar bylaw, it's not the next meeting, but at the December 8th meeting, we're going to take public comment. It's not a public hearing. December 8th 3 PM. And we decide we're going to, right now, room 27, unless we can find a bigger venue, right? So public comment, we'll be doing some limited presentation on what we're finding. And I could tell you, going through this process, I have a much greater understanding and appreciation for the complexities
Zoning laws?
Well, no, not, but specifically solar siting. It's really apparent to me now how to understand Mr. Shanahan's presentation as the solar developer, but he's not the landowner. And there are very different dynamics going on, what his needs and interests are as a solar developer. The landowner is a completely different entity, and
December 8th is what day of the week?
it's a Wednesday,
Wednesday at 3 PM
3 PM.
in room 27 right now?
Right now, it's room 27.
Miss Annie, you're just chomping at the bit. Do you have something brief to share with us? I can't hear you. You need to come up. You need to come up. Because I can do that. Yes, I can.
Did I misunderstand the public comment on the master plan to be only Mr. Schultz, or am I allowed to speak on the master plan?
Oh, I called for comments. I didn't know that you
Oh.
wanted to say anything.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I'll come back to you, all right?
Shall I sit here?
I'm sorry, Mr. Schultz.
I'm done.
Okay. Mr. King, you have any updates to share with us? I'm going to jump back to comments on master plan updates and new initiatives. Miss Annie, you have something to share with us?
Well, I do. And the master plan seems to get short shrift. And I want to recall myself that the notice vote, about deforestation, for example, was really a vast majority of the populace. And I expect that what I've read of the master plan is reflecting just that. It was a plan written by the townspeople of Wareham. They want more open space. They want less deforestation. And that's a complicated thing, as you said, Mr. Schultz, to reconcile with all of the developers who want to come to Wareham. And this woman back here said all the green space, this development that was just discussed, so much green space lost. So one of the ways to fight for the master plan, fight for stopping deforestation, fight for the environment, is to be able to have time to submit data. I responded the way I did, not with the data that I have on certain issues, but because here was this tsunami of all of the, you're right, all of Con Edison's rationale or reasons for wanting this plan.
Annie,
to go.
I need to ask you, what's this have to do with updates to the master plan?
Because I think that the master plan is not living up to its mandate to preserve the environment, open space. That's a huge goal of the master plan.
Okay.
Okay, so that there needs to be time for data, and I don't know what to do with the data that I have on vernal pools, on wells. It goes on and on. What do I do with the data? Because I'm not sure it gets read, and I feel like the public via Zoom should be able to hear these.
So
submissions.
Annie, I strongly urge you to look at the update process to the master plan. It's in the master plan. And consider how you may want to incorporate your positions and your data into that and bring it to us to consider.
The data was on Faring Hill, which I couldn't possibly present in 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. We have no referrals to talk to. The next future meeting, the Article 15 site plan review workshop, and we're adding into that at least the site inspection procedures, if not the public hearing procedures, and the permit discrepancy escalation procedures will be on December. Third Monday in December. On the 20th. That's a workshop. The meetings in December are the 13th and the 27th. likely that we'll talk about canceling the 27th, but we'll have that discussion on the 13th.
Mr. Chairman, to that point, how do you want us to provide input and comment on all of those documents you've given? We've talked with that, you and I have talked with that, I don't know how many others about collaborative editing. I don't know, how do you want?
For now,
We can do collaborative editing. We can't do collaborative discussion.
so,
And I'm only saying that because Mr. Buckland has advised the solar bylaw study committee that we can edit the draft bylaw. We just have to limit the amount of debate online and debate the comments in the meeting. Is my understanding correct? Yeah.
may I?
So I just want to know how you
Sure.
want input.
So let me give some background. There's some good technology out there, and I'm just going to use one example called Google Docs. And it's an online technology, and I know Michael doesn't want to hear, Michael Baptiste, you don't want to hear that, but I'm going to share it anyway. But I just was on a committee for the Wareham Public Schools to do their 5-year strategy plan. And we had some limited success doing Google Docs, where documents are put up on, and you can go look at them, you can read them, and you can comment on them. You can see other people's comments, and it's all collectively shared there. And at some point, someone or some group of people need to look at all those comments and decide whether to incorporate them or not incorporate them. But in terms of gathering feedback, it's pretty effective. But you've got to commit yourself to doing it. Aaron's talked to me about it. Carl's talked to me about it. I used it in my professional career. I know you used it in your professional career. I have an idea that you used it in your academic career. It's something that we need to get on board with. And I'll be very honest with you, it's not something that you turn on overnight. You just don't flip the switch and everyone understands it, knows how to use it. It's a culture shift. It's a technology shift. It's many different shifts for people. And as Carl and I have discussed, it takes some getting used to.
And it's not necessarily easy for everyone.
Right. So for the time being, I'm distributing PDF documents. People can respond directly to me with an email that you can, Carl has taken his PDF and written on it and scanned it and sent it back to me. I'll take anything and anyhow you want to do it. I would strongly suggest that people take the time to do it before December 20th. Give me a head start. I've incorporated comments from Charlie so far. I've incorporated comments from you so far. I have a new set of documents. Somewhere here, I brought some tonight. I have new ones I want to give to Michael. But for now, I think we do it manually.
Okay, so and then based on Ken's advice to me, I have to be careful not to do a reply all and enter into a,
Right.
the natural tendency is to
Absolutely.
get into a discussion and we have to avoid that.
So what I'm going to try to do to that end, if I do an email, I'm going to send it to the Wareham Planning Board members to a blind CC list. In that way, you only see that
If you
it's,
accidentally hit reply all.
then you, yeah, because when I do that, you don't see who it's sent to. Rest assured, it's been sent to everyone in this room right now. But if you do a reply all, it only replies to me. You don't, it's a handy tool for not letting people know who you sent everything to or limiting the consequences of reply all, which is usually the kiss of death in a corporate world. They're beautiful. Some of the ones I've seen when I was working were just too good. Anyway, so to answer your question, we're going to do it manually for now.
Okay, so you're gonna continue to take my handwritten.
Yes,
Okay,
I've already done it.
I'll
They're
keep
already in.
doing it.
So I will send out, I've already sent them all these documents. There's 5 of them, actually. The 4 policy docs and 1 Article 15 site plan review for town meeting consideration. Aaron's going to put them on our webpage. Work with Lucas to get that done. Do you have any comments you want to make?
Yeah, well, as far as that, this is on. Yeah, because I'm going to work with Sonia about putting those on the website. I know you talked about cleaning up a little bit today, so I'll talk to her about that as well. I have something unrelated, but I don't know if I'm going to say it now. I don't know if Ken might know that covenant I gave you.
Yes.
It's about what we discussed before. I think that was for phase one for Bay Point, that covenant.
Yes.
On the, where it says sign here, I think it says accepted by majority of the board. I don't know if Sonia wanted me to have you guys sign that tonight, or that could be for a future day. I didn't ask her because I just saw it in the folder and we didn't discuss it before. So I don't know. I guess maybe we could wait till next meeting, but I'm not sure it's something that has to be done. I have to read the document again. I didn't read it because I just saw it in the folder, but then somebody mentioned a covenant in our
Let
discussion.
me review it. All right. I'm not
Okay.
going to rush into this one.
So back to your earlier point, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just, and I'm going to just follow up on the email I sent you. We're going to have to present Article 15 for town, Springtown meeting. So we've got work to do. But also the solar bylaw study committee has to bring forward section 590 to you guys for public hearing. And then that will also then have to get packaged. We hope, our goal is to have it done for a Springtown meeting, and our charter expires. So if we don't get it done, we turn into a pumpkin. And then also as part of section 590, we need to update Article 16, which is definitions. So that will have to go also. So we have public hearings and packaging to do for zoning bylaw updates for Springtown meeting. And that's all going to take place January, early February. I know it's still, we may not get done, but if we don't get done, we're in trouble.
So it's my understanding, though, that the planning, in terms of the solar bylaw update that you're doing, the planning board's one and only responsibility is to conduct a public hearing.
Correct.
I would expect the solar bylaw committee to come in with modifications to 590.
Oh, yeah,
and
we're
6.
going to write, but
Right.
I was just following up on I'm sorry, I didn't mention this. Mr. Buckland suggested that we bundle all of the zoning bylaw changes
Into one public hearing.
well, not into one public hearing, into one thing we present to town
One
meeting.
article, which would be one public hearing as well.
Oh, do it as one public hearing as well. Okay.
It'd be one article with all the changes for solar bylaw.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So
And would you want to include Article 15 changes that we're considering in that?
No, because that wouldn't be direct to the solar bylaw.
Okay.
Oh,
I
okay.
agree.
I thought you had implied that because I'm not sure we're not going to make changes to Article 15 as well.
If you do, then we should include that as one of the changes that has something to do with solar bylaw.
Okay. All I'm saying is there's going to be a lot of machinations going on.
Let me throw one more out there too, in that the process docs on escalation, site visit, site inspection, and public hearing, as well as the fee regulations document. There's 4, I call them policy documents or rules and regulation docs. We need to have a public hearing on those. I think we can do them all in one. And we do not have to take those to town meeting.
Right.
Those are rules and regulations that this board can put in place, but we do have to have public hearing on them.
So we've got a lot of business coming up.
Hopefully we could do all those public hearings we've just talked about in one session. It would be my goal. We would not need to continue them. That's how I've seen them done mostly in the past.
That's right. You go to midnight, you know?
Yeah. But
Also, another comment too, as far as like what you've heard about what's coming up in terms of you guys are going to be busy.
yeah, what else is coming?
Because you have the ones from the 5. Yeah, but didn't somebody else mention another 5? Did I miss that today? I thought someone else mentioned other definitive subdivision plans too.
I had 9 preliminary subdivision plans in my head that came through back April, June time.
Yeah, somebody else came up here today, I forget who it was, and also mentioned, so maybe that was related to the one before I was here. But you're gonna be a little busy, so it's probably gonna be some long nights.
Okay,
But yeah.
but they're all zoning freeze. They're not. Yeah, that's the word I wanted to use. I was afraid to say it. They're not real. They're you're right.
Don't forget, though, that those are subdivisions of more than 30 acres. So each one of them, if they're more than 30 acres, goes through site plan review as well.
Yeah.
Which was not filed with you tonight.
But that's not what's required to get the zoning freeze, huh?
Right.
So I looked at two other towns. I want you to know, I went to two other towns today for a totally different reason, to look at their planning board websites, and neither one of these towns, I should say, had any subdivision or site plan reviews on them. They had the most mundane half an hour agenda I've ever seen, you know? Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
on
Most
solar,
of ours are.
just one more update for the board.
Yes.
And it's related to one of our, I think it was a subdivision plan, might have been a site plan, the Rocky Maple Solar, which we approved and the Conservation Commission denied. There is a site hearing by the DEP on the 30th. If you're interested to go see, they're going to go visit the site. They're going to presumably make a ruling on the Conservation Commission's findings. And that will affect Rocky Maple Solar as well as Linda Rintis project. And then one more update at the zoning board. I think it was the zoning board. Well, I don't know if it was the planning board or the zoning board of Carver. They are requiring that the solar developer remove the wooden poles. And the solar developer has agreed to remove the wooden poles for the dual use solar in Carver, and they're going to put in concrete stanchions.
I read that.
Mike.
A quarter of it's under construction right now. as we
So I
speak.
think they're going to have to go back and take those down and put concrete stanchions in.
It's going to be
It's
interesting.
still going to be hideous.
I'd take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Let's do it.
I have a motion from Mr. Corbett and a second from Mr. King to adjourn. All in favor, Mr. Corbett? Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste? Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Swenson votes aye, 500. Thank you very much.